Chapter 263. Seeing this, Yixian hurriedly walked over and pulled Song Suijing to his side, saying, "It's fine. I think I said this many times when I was trying to avoid being killed. Let's just forget about it." After saying this, he suddenly remembered that Song Suijing was now his fiancée, and Lin Shuer had nothing to do with him anymore. In this kind of situation, he should help his loved one and not help reason. Therefore, he continued, "Also, Miss Shuer, you scolded me in front of my fiancé and embarrassed me. I'll let it go this time, but if there's a next time, don't blame me for being heartless. When the time comes, don't say that I was lenient on account of uncle." "Do you think that move of yours will still work?" Lin Shuer retorted. "The 8 Desolation Heaven-Shaking Sword can only be used once against a person, but my trump card is used to kill people, not to capture people. If you really want to fight, you can try it now. When the time comes, don't blame me if you lose any part of your body," Yixian said calmly. The sonic boom of the 8 Desolation Heaven-Shaking Sword could only be used once. The second time, the opponent would be on guard. However, with his extraordinary speed, he could cut Lin Shuer in half several times. If he added the 8 Desolation Wind-Killing Formation, Lin Shuer would have died several times. Come out quickly. I'm just waiting for you too." Lin Shuer's face darkened as she turned around and left. "Don't you think you've gone too far with your words?" Song Suijing looked at Lin Shuer's back as she left and couldn't help but ask. "When I was a good-for-nothing, she beat me up when I was down. I'm very vengeful. Most importantly, she ignored you. Now that you're my fiancé, I definitely can't tolerate this," Yixian explained. After hearing this, Song Suijing was very happy. She smugly pecked Yixian's face. "All right, we should settle our women's matters ourselves. When there are people around, you should leave her some face." After Song Suijing finished speaking, she held Yixian's arm and left. Previously, she was too shy to announce it, but now she was afraid that the whole world wouldn't know that Yixian was her fiancé. Yixian thought to himself, jealous women are too scary. Luckily, Lin Shuer and I have nothing to do with each other, otherwise we would really have a fight. At this moment, to find a place, the heavenly abode, there was a large black mass. Sect Master Lin Shi of Soaring Heaven Mansion, Grand Elder Zhou Yan, Sect Master Amo of Sky Yuan Sect. Seeing 3 figures slowly walking over, the Supreme Elder hurriedly said, "You brat, you are always the slowest. Hurry up and come over." And, hee. Songju raised his eyebrows at Yixian. The two of them smiled without saying a word. "Rise." At this moment, the Grand Elder shouted, and the soaring sky rocks soared into the sky. This time, in order to find the celestial blue stone, the Soaring Sky Mansion had mobilized all of their forces. Although the Soaring Sky Mansion was empty, there was still a super expert guarding it. So Zhou Yan and Lin Shi were not afraid. Yesterday, they had already discussed with Mo Ziyun that the Soaring Sky Mansion would send out 60 soaring sky rocks. Since the Heavenly Yuan sect had few Heavenly Thunder Eagles, it was enough to send out more disciples. The two sides complemented each other, so this was not bad. The soaring sky rocks began to fly towards the southern city. Such a large group caused the spirit beasts along the way to retreat. Previously, the Grand Elder Zhou Yan brought Yixian and a dozen people to Huayang's abode, which took half a month. This time they were traveling at full speed, so they arrived early. When the disciples and elders of the Heavenly Yuan sect saw the hundreds of soaring sky rocks, they immediately panicked, thinking that the Soaring Sky Mansion had come to attack. Luckily, Mo Ziyun had arrived in time, or else, things would have become much more serious. In less than an hour, Mo Ziyun had summoned many divine core warriors. There were more than 100 of them. The Heavenly Yuan sect was indeed worthy of its name. Its overall strength was much stronger than the Soaring Sky Mansion. Chapter 264. You're all at the Earth Core realm. Why did you ask me, a mere mortal core warrior, to come here? Yixian rolled his eyes. Cut the crap. You were able to capture Miss Shuer. That proves that you have the strength of an Earth Core warrior. This trip to the Green Serene Land is very dangerous. There are some things you need to know, the Supreme Elder said. Yixian was startled, then he said, Isn't it just a comprehensive search of the Green Serene Land? What else is there? Listen carefully. The Supreme Elder boasted. The Green Serene Land is a forbidden area within the Heavenly Yuan sect. There are many mortal core Xian beasts there, and there are also earth core Xian beasts there as well. Most importantly, there is a heavenly core overlord there. Hearing this, Yi Xian's eyes lit up. Not only could he absorb natural treasures to level up, he could also absorb Xian beasts' corpses and nadens. This was a great place for him to level up. What is that heavenly core overlord? Yi Xian asked curiously. Even if they couldn't find the celestial greenstone this time, it would still be great if they could find a Xian beast's corpse. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly thought of another problem. The heavenly core Xian beast's Naiden. There were 4 earth core warriors here, and if they killed the heavenly core Xian beast, who would get the Naiden? If they were to fight, the Soaring Heaven Mansion would definitely be at a disadvantage. After all, the Soaring Heaven Mansion only had 4 earth core warriors, and they had fewer disciples than the Heavenly Yuan sect. However, what Yi Xian didn't understand was that the Supreme Elder and sect leader's eyes were filled with confidence. Why was that? That heavenly core overlord is a strange Xian beast. It is called the Green Source Giant. It is dozens of meters tall, and its defense is extremely strong. Even if the 4 of us work together, I don't think we can break its defense. A heavenly core warrior was killed by it before. That's why we'll split up and search for it. If we see it, we'll retreat immediately and don't provoke it. The Supreme Elder said in a serious tone. So that's why we can't beat it? Yi Xian thought to himself, then he nodded his head. As long as they didn't provoke this Green Source Giant, those Earth Core profound beasts would be easy to deal with. This time the 3 of us will form a team. You'll bring the Supreme Judge and the Supreme Judge, the Supreme Elder said. I understand. Yi Xian nodded again. Under such circumstances, it was naturally best to have the person closest to him by his side. The Grand Elder glanced at Mo Ziyun and Lin Shuer and said, also, there was a misunderstanding before. You can return Miss Schwerer's things to her. When Yi Xian heard this, he felt very helpless. He had guessed that this would happen, so he had already poured the items into an interspatial ring. Take it. Yi Xian threw it over. Lin Shuer took a look and saw that everything was still there. Even the middle grade earth weapon that Mo Ziyun gave her was still there. She snorted coldly and gave Yi Xian a look. At least you know your place. She immediately took out the earthly artifacts and distributed them to the rest of the people. Long before this, Zhou Yan had already distributed the earth artifacts he had forged. Therefore this time their strength was extremely strong. These disciples and elders could practically challenge higher-level profound beasts. At this time Yi Xian suddenly thought of something and said, Supreme Elder, I have something to say to you in private. Hearing this, Zhou Yan was startled and immediately followed Yi Xian to the side. Stinking brat, what do you have to say? Zhou Yan said in astonishment. Yi Xian didn't say anything and directly took out an interspatial ring and said, there are 4 middle-grade earth weapons in here. Supreme Elder, do you want them? What? 4 middle-grade earth weapons? You obtained them in Huoyang's cave? The Supreme Elder was shocked. No, I obtained some forging materials in there, so I forged 4 of them. Supreme Elder, 1 for 5 million middle-grade earth crystals, do you want them? Yi Xian said softly. You're the one who forged them? Zhou Yan's eyes widened. He received the interspatial ring and had a look. Indeed, there were 4 weapons, and the name of the person who forged them was Yi Xian. 5 million for one, that's cheap. Yi Xian suddenly revealed an evil smile. However, these 4 middle-grade earth weapons were exchanged from the Devouring system, and they cost him 50 billion Devouring points. Alright, I'll take them. The Supreme Elder immediately agreed and took out 2,000 top-grade earth crystals. 200 billion Devouring points in exchange for 2,000 top-grade earth crystals. This was definitely a good deal. After all, if he devoured these 2,000 top-grade earth crystals, he would be able to obtain another 200 billion Devouring points, and he would be able to improve his cultivation. Oh right, I actually have more in my interspatial ring. Supreme Elder, do you want to give them to the Heavenly Yuan sect? I'm just worried that after they take them, they will try to kill the Green Source Giant. At that time, all of you will be fighting for the Heavenly Core Profound Beast's core. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. Yi Xian said softly. Don't worry, just do as you wish. The Soaring Heaven Mansion is no longer afraid of the Heavenly Yuan sect. The Supreme Elder said firmly. Why? Yi Xian was surprised. I won't tell you now, but if that green source giant really appears, you'll know. The Supreme Elder purposely kept Yixian in suspense, then he continued, oh right, as for the rest of the middle-grade earth weapons, give them 8 million each. Damn it, the older the ginger, the spicier it is. What a black-hearted bastard. Master, what did that guy say to you? Seeing that the Supreme Elder and Yixian had returned, the Soaring Heaven Mansion's sect leader Lin Shi asked curiously. Zhou Yan replied, nothing, he just gave me a few middle-grade earth weapons. Middle-grade earth weapons. When Zhou Yan's words left his mouth, everyone was shocked. A single middle-grade earth weapon was already very precious. How could he give them a few more? Haha, don't be nervous, everyone. Elder Hu, Elder Lian, take these 2 middle-grade earth weapons. Zhou Yan directly handed over 2 middle-grade earth weapons, then gave one to Lin Shi. Mo Ziyun's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. A middle-grade earth weapon was not expensive to him, but he did not have the means to get it. The factions in the Middle State hated the 4 major sects, so it was very difficult to get a middle-grade earth weapon. However, Zhou Yan was actually distributing the middle-grade earth weapons in front of everyone. This was attracting hatred. Sect leader Mo, what's wrong? The Supreme Elder Zhou Yan asked deliberately. Elder Zhou, these middle-grade earth weapons are all the same. Where did they come from? As Mo Ziyun spoke, his gaze fell on Yixian. Naturally, they were made by Yixian. Zhou Yan grinned then said, don't worry, sect leader Mo. Yixian still has a few middle-grade earth weapons. It's up to you whether you want them or not. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present trembled again. What the F***ck, Yixian was actually able to forge middle-grade earth weapons. How is this possible? At this time, Lin Shuer suddenly remembered that Yixian had said that he might send more middle-grade earth weapons to the Heavenly Yuan sect in the future. It turned out that this was not a joke. End of chapter. Chapter 265. Northern Borderline Imperial Capital. Early morning roosters crowed in every corner of the streets. All the clans sent their clansmen to the Tianke Mountain, preparing to bring back the people who went to cultivate half a year ago. After cultivating in the Dragon's Vein for half a year, their strength would definitely increase greatly. Now that they returned, they would definitely be able to repay the imperial capital and bring honor to their ancestors. Outside the soul-perching forest, a crowd surged. Some came to bring back people, some came to stop the powerhouses from exiting their seclusion. In everyone's eyes they were filled with longing. Tianke Mountain Divine Abode. An old woman slowly walked out of the house. Bai Xiao walked beside her. The old woman wore a dark red robe and held a large cane. She said to Bai Xiao, it's been hard on you for the past half a year. We 2 old things haven't broken through for a long time and can't do anything. Bai Xiao smiled faintly and shook his head. Granny Longxing, please don't say that. It's my honor to help you and Senior Long Chu in this divine abode. Longxing smiled meaningfully. Then he said to Bai Xiao, among the cultivators who came to the divine abode this time, is there anyone with good potential? There isn't anyone this time either, Bai Xiao replied softly. Forget it, forget it. Divine Palace City has disappeared and all the martial emperors on this mainland have fallen. No matter how strong they are now, they are still at the same realm as us old bones. Long Jian sighed softly and stood outside the wooden house. Bai Xiao smiled and said, but among the people who came this time, Princess Long Shi is also among them. What? Why did she come to Heaven K Mountain? Isn't her body? Long Xing didn't continue. As Long Tian's mother, how could she not understand her obedient grandson? But she didn't continue and waited for Bai Xiao's reply. Looking at those slightly cloudy eyes, Bai Xiao said, a year ago, there was an alchemy genius in Heaven K City. His attainments in alchemy were extraordinary. More than half a year ago, he came to the imperial capital and had a cure for Princess Long Shi's chronic illness. That was why he opened the divine abode in advance and let them come here to treat her illness. Long Xing looked a little anxious. She asked Bai Xiao, how is the situation now? Bai Xiao nodded. Princess Long Shi has already entered the ranks of cultivators. A few days ago I went to the 3rd floor to sense her. She is now at the 2nd level of the Heaven Martial Realm. Actually, Bai Xiao also felt that Jiang Xiaofan's medical skills were unbelievable. Long Shi's chronic illness had taken the entire Long family's power and they had recruited many talented doctors, But there was no progress even after more than 10 years. Zhang Xiaofan, a mere 17-year-old youth, was actually able to completely cure it in a short month. Moreover, he was able to make his cultivation advance by leaps and bounds. This was definitely not something an ordinary person could do. This kind of ability was completely unreasonable, but she could understand it. After all, Zhang Xiaofan was the reincarnation of the creation divinity. The creation divinity created all things in the world, so it was not completely impossible for his reincarnation to cure an illness. At this moment, the door of the wooden house opened. Seeing Longxing and Bai Xiao, he bowed towards them, then turned and said, "Half a year has passed. You can go down the mountain." The 50 people on the first floor started to walk out of the house. At this time, the 3 brothers also walked out side by side. They came to the outside of the house and stood at the side, quietly waiting for Zhang Xiaofan to come out. After everyone gathered, they would be led away from the Heavenly K Mountain by the royal guards. The reason why they were brought away was naturally because they were afraid that someone would stay on the Heavenly K Mountain and secretly cultivate, breaking the rules. After that, the second floor's disciples also walked out of the wooden house under the lead of Longxing. On the third floor, the bamboo door opened slowly. Longxi took a deep breath of the fragrant air and walked out of the house. She found Bai Chen and Wei Qing already standing outside the house, waiting for them. When she saw Longxi walking out of the bamboo house in high spirits, her face lit up with joy. It seemed like Zhang Xiaofan had succeeded. Longxi quickly walked forward and hugged Bai Chen. Bai Chen congratulated her. "Sister Shir, you succeeded. That's great." Longxi nodded repeatedly. "I knew Master would definitely cure me." "Oh right. Where did Big Bastard go?" Bai Chen looked around but did not see Zhang Xiaofan. Longxi smiled embarrassedly. This. Swoosh. A faint white light flashed. Then the light gradually dissipated. A young man stood in this illusory space. Bing Yi stood beside Zhang Xiaofan and looked at him. Xiaofan, what did you give me today?" Right now, Zhang Xiaofan had a 10th level immortal physique, the same as Henju. He had reached the threshold of becoming a martial emperor. Not only that, his physique had also risen to the Sarira level, then to the immortal physique. These 2 levels of rewards gave him 2 lottery chances. These were absolutely good stuff. "Then let's go out." "But I don't think I can." Bing Yi smiled awkwardly but politely. "What?" Zhang Xiaofan almost spat out a mouthful of blood. In fact, Bing Yi had wanted to leave this dragon vein for a long time. After all, with her ability, she did not need a weakling like Zhang Xiaofan to bring her away. However, she had tried before but she could not leave this space. Because of this, she had been trapped here for an unknown period of time. Zhang Xiaofan pondered for a moment and remembered that Bing Yi was a spirit formed by the dragon vein. She did not have her own body and her consciousness did not have a physical body to rely on, so she could not leave this place. These were all some of the knowledge that the old demon Henju, who had lived for hundreds of years, often imparted to him. It was very difficult for a consciousness without a physical body to exist on its own. This was also what Henju taught him. This is the space of consciousness of the dragon vein. You can't leave this place. You can come to my EC space. There should be no problem. Zhang Xiaofan said and reached out his hand towards Bing Yi. Bing Yi looked at Zhang Xiaofan and then looked at his hand. Then she pursed her lips and smiled. She took a step forward and grabbed this warm hand. She felt good. But this made Zhang Xiaofan suffer. This Bing Yi girl's strength was too strong. It was not an existence that he could easily endure. The moment Bing Yi grabbed his hand, Zhang Xiaofan's vision still turned black and he almost fainted. Bing Yi was about to leave with Zhang Xiaofan, but Zhang Xiaofan stopped in his tracks. He pointed at the 2 bodies not far away. Only then did Bing Yi smile. "I almost forgot." After saying that, he flicked his sleeves and the 2 of them flew into his sleeves. Looking at the 2 seniors who had been reincarnated with divine personas turned into puppets, Zhang Xiaofan felt strange in his heart. But the weak were prey to the strong. The 2 of them were either too weak or too stupid, so they were turned into this by Bing Yi. Following a wave of dizziness, Zhang Xiaofan took a few steps back and sat on the ground. A pain came from his buttocks. He looked forward and found that in front of him was no longer the empty space, but the gigantic dragon vein. The dragon vein was still the same as before, but there was a lack of spirituality in the spiritual energy. Bing Yi. Zhang Xiaofan called out tentatively, but Bing Yi did not give him the slightest response. He called out 2 more times, but there was still no movement. At this time, Henju could not stand it anymore and said, "Stop calling, this little girl has fallen asleep in your high. The people outside have already started to evacuate, you should hurry up and go up." Zhang Xiaofan pinched his fingers and calculated, and he immediately cursed in his heart. He calculated the date wrong. He thought they would evacuate tomorrow. He hurriedly rushed towards the entrance of the tunnel. At this time, the spiritual energy that prevented him from leaving that day was still blocking the entrance, but now he felt that this spiritual energy seemed to be afraid of him. Zhang Xiaofan did not hesitate in the slightest as he rushed over. The thick wall of spiritual energy collapsed the moment it came into contact with Zhang Xiaofan. Zhang Xiaofan looked pensive. He was afraid that the so-called 4 great dragon veins would be brought out of the frozen end, allowing the consciousness of the dragon veins to stay in his high. It was the same for the consciousness of the 9 gods, and it was the same for the 81 divine cores. Zhang Xiaofan could not help but wonder if his tiny high could hold so many things. Walking out of the tunnel, Zhang Xiaofan suddenly stomped on the ground. Using this force, he flew straight up into the sky. Rustle, rustle. Just as long she did not know how to explain, the bushes behind the fake mountain rustled, and then Zhang Xiaofan walked out. Long Shi and Bai Yichen looked over at the same time. The corner of Bai Yichen's mouth twitched. "Big bastard, why did you go there?" Zhang Xiaofan scratched the back of his head and explained, This. Bai Yichen rolled her eyes at him. As expected of master and disciple, the 2 of them behaved the same way. She said unhappily, "Let's go. The dandelion is already rushing us." "Wait, I need to get something." After saying that, Zhang Xiaofan directly rushed into the bamboo building. At this moment, Henju was sitting on a rattan chair, waiting for him to return. After seeing Zhang Xiaofan, Henju smiled amiably. "You're finally back." Then Henju turned into a ray of white light and flew into Zhang Xiaofan's chest. In Yihai, Henju, who had been away for several months, finally returned. When he returned to Yihai, he saw a girl sleeping inside and 2 men standing beside her. He was instantly shocked. "Kid, where did you kidnap these 3 people from?" The surrounding spiritual energy was normal, and Chanemo finally let out a long sigh of relief. He leaned to the side and said weakly, "This girl is called Bing Yi. You should know what she is, right?" Henju was an immortal rank artificer. How could he not know what Bing Yi was? One of the 4 great ancient divine dragons. He quickly walked to Bing Yi's side and carefully examined her chubby and cute little face. "You mean this thing is the dragon vein?" "That's not it," Chanemo said with a grin. Henju raised his hand and poked the girl's face. Seeing this, Chanemo hurriedly tried to stop him, but it was too late. Oh my god!" Henju cried out in alarm. Then, his body froze for a moment before he fell straight to the ground. How could he easily resist the power of the dragon vein? He had already killed 2 of the creation god's reincarnations. At this time, outside the wooden house, Bai Xiao saw Zhang Xiaofan's figure in her mind, and her body trembled. Longxing noticed Bai Xiao's strange behavior and asked, "What's wrong?" Bai Xiao realized that she had lost her composure and hurriedly smiled at Longxing apologetically. "It's nothing." Her expression had regained its tranquility, but her heart was already in a perilous state. Zhang Xiaofan, he really did it. He obtained the Northern Dragon Vein. The Supreme Lord's prophecy is coming true. Chapter 266. Watching Zhang Xiaofan walk out of the bamboo building slowly, Bai Yichen and Long Shi stood outside the building and raised their heads slightly. They were both stunned. After not seeing Zhang Xiaofan for half a year, he was very different from before. He had the same appearance, the same personality, and the same clothes, but they always felt that Zhang Xiaofan had an extraordinary temperament, as if he was an unattainable immortal. His delicate appearance, the strength of the earth martial arts realm, coupled with that temperament, it was simply amazing. No one knew what Zhang Xiaofan had experienced in the past half a year. Only he knew. At the body relic stage, Zhang Xiaofan's body shrank, gradually changing from tangible to intangible. His body shrank to the size of a pellet, then became intangible, becoming an immortal. Under the gazes of the two girls, Zhang Xiaofan walked in front of them. Zhang Xiaofan tilted his head and said, "Let's go." Bai Chen and Long Shi suppressed the surprise in their hearts, held hands and walked towards the stairs, while Zhang Xiaofan and Wei Qing walked side by side behind them. "Elder Wei, your body has improved a lot in the past half a year. It seems that you are not far from breaking through." Zhang Xiaofan saw that Wei Qing had already reached the realm of rank 9 spirit body. The elixir seemed to be very effective for him. Wei Qing smiled. "Far from it. However, I'm afraid your body is already an immortal physique, right?" Wei Qing's words hit the nail on the head, causing Zhang Xiaofan to feel a little awkward. Indeed, the older the wiser. Wei Qing had lived for more than 100 years. He could tell that Zhang Xiaofan's body had improved a lot. The two of them were chatting about various methods to improve their cultivation and physical bodies. At this moment, Long Shi's shout pulled the two of them back from their pleasant conversation. "Grandma!" Long Shi walked quickly to Long Shi, who was overjoyed to see her obedient grandson coming out of the dragon vein unscathed. She grabbed Long Shi's arm and looked at her up and down. "My Shir has finally grown up." Facing her grandma's praise, Long Shi was also very happy. At this moment, she suddenly thought of something and said to Long Jian, "Grandma, this is my master, he was the one who cured me." Long Shi looked at Zhang Xiaofan from head to toe, then nodded. Good, good, good. Since ancient times, heroes have always been born from the young. To be able to become an iron-armored royal guard at such a young age, you are also extraordinary. This old man will write a letter to Long Tian to promote you. Senior, please wait, forget about promoting me. Since Shir is my master and trusts me so much, these are what I should do. Zhang Xiaofan smiled at Long Shi. Looking at this young man who had no desire for fame or fortune, Long Shi's eyes were full of praise. She nodded. Fine, this old man can't be bothered with the matters of the imperial court. If there's anything you want, just tell Shi-er. The Long family will naturally help you achieve it. Thank you very much. Zhang Xiaofan bowed to Long Shi, and after exchanging a few pleasantries, he met up with the three brothers and they directly walked out of the immortal abode. To everyone, this cultivation session was not a small improvement, not to mention the three brothers. With the help of the elixirs given by Zhang Xiaofan, the efficiency of their cultivation was more than 10 times that of the others. Naturally, they improved by leaps and bounds. Now Iron Hammer had already reached the Sky Martial Arts realm, while Iron Shovel and Iron Plow were already at the peak of the Earth Martial Arts realm, only one step away from the Sky Martial Arts realm. Bai Chen was now only a thought away from the Martial King realm. Because breaking through to the Martial King realm was a major event, it could not be carried out in the Dragon Vein. She had to be brought to the Kunlun Mystery Land by the Bai family's elders, and focus on the test of the Kunlun Snow Fox to help her break through. The next cultivation session would be 3 years later, but Bai Chen was probably here to break through to the Martial King realm. However, the premise was that 3 years later, Zhang Xiaofan could carry out the plan and help the Spiritual Brilliance realm survive the catastrophe. Walking out of the door, Long Shi clenched her fists. Then a wave of martial arts chi slowly rose and lifted her body into the air. With a face full of excitement, she turned her head and said to Zhang Xiaofan, "Master, I can fly in the air." Flying in the air for the first time, Long Shi was too excited. Her body tilted and was about to fall. Fortunately, Zhang Xiaofan noticed it in time and rushed forward to support her. "Be careful. Don't be afraid. Master is by my side." Long Shi revealed a mischievous smile, making Zhang Xiaofan feel helpless. Bai Chen and Wei Qing flew to their side and said to Yi Hao, who came to guide them, "Yi Hao will be leaving first." Yes. When Yi Hao arrived and saw Long Shi hovering in the air, he knew that Zhang Xiaofan had succeeded. He secretly congratulated him, but he did not get carried away. He still counted the people carefully and led them away. As Zhang Xiaofan followed Long Shi to the palace to meet Long Tian, the three brothers did not follow. After all, they had stayed in the mountains for half a year and relied on their spiritual power to survive. Now that they were out, they would be letting down their fat bodies if they did not eat and drink to their heart's content in the capital. Watching the few of them leave happily, Bai Xiao stood in the courtyard and watched Zhang Xiaofan's back view gradually disappear into the distance. He turned and returned to the house. Ridiculous. At this moment, Long Tian sat in the court and threw the memorial in his hands on the ground angrily. He reprimanded, "The dragon vein is the root of the northern border, and the spirit vein is the source of cultivation. The spirit vein is gone? What is the city lord's abode doing?" Chu Heng took a step forward and said respectfully to Long Tian, "Your Majesty, I don't know if this news is true or false, but I heard that the Seven Planet sect is mining the spirit vein. I think we need to send an army to investigate." At this moment Mi Yan, who was standing at the side, slowly walked forward. Long Tianjin had made a breakthrough in his martial arts and had reorganized the imperial court, causing his authority to be greatly reduced. He was very unhappy and expressed his opinion on this matter. "Your Majesty, the Seven Luminaries sect is indeed unfathomable. At this moment the relationship between this and the Seven Luminaries sect is definitely not small. This is a serious matter and we should send elite troops. General Bai or General Zhu should lead elite troops to investigate." Bai Moxing stood at the side in armor. At this moment he frowned and sneered in his heart. "Old fox." There had been news of the spirit vein moving 2 months ago, but Mei Yan had suppressed it again and again until today. Now, he definitely had something to do with it. Yet, he actually wanted Bai Moxing or Chu Heng, who held military power, to go out. There was most likely a trap. Mei Yan had ruled the court for many years and the people had no way to live. Now, he actually had an interest in military power. Faced with such ambition, Bai Moxing was about to step forward and say something when there was a commotion outside. Then people landed outside the hall. Everyone looked over and saw Bai Yichen and Long Shi bringing Wei Qing and Zhang Xiaofen over. When Long Tian saw Long Shi, his gloomy expression instantly disappeared. He looked at Long Shi with joy in his eyes. "Father." Long Shi quickly walked up and came to his side. Long Tian grasped Long Shi's hand and immediately felt the power of Sky Martial Qi. "Sheer is already in the Sky Martial realm. Not bad, not bad," Long Tian said sincerely. His tone was as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. This sore point that had been pressing on him for more than 10 years was finally eradicated. Long Shi nodded fiercely and said, "It's all thanks to Master. There were many times when I almost couldn't hold on anymore. Master stayed by my side and encouraged me, making me stand up again and again. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to see Shi-er again." The first thing the eccentric Long Shi did was put in a good word for Zhang Xiaofan. This little girl was really quite thoughtful. Long Tian looked at Zhang Xiaofan, who was standing in the hall, and nodded. He said loudly, "Zhang Xiaofan, listen up." Hearing that this guy was going to reward him, Zhang Xiaofan hurriedly straightened his body. However, he did not kneel down to pay his respects. Seeing this, Mi Yan wanted to scold him. Half a year ago, Zhang Xiaofan's limelight had faintly overshadowed his. He even told Long Tian that a lowly commoner like Zhang Xiaofan would harm the princess. Long Tian went to warn Zhang Xiaofan, and he even said some harsh words. Now his face was slapped loudly. At this time he had wanted to use the emperor's prestige to take Zhang Xiaofan down a notch. However, Long Tian did not seem to care. So he forcefully swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. Long Tian said loudly, "Zhang Xiaofan is young and promising. He cultivates both alchemy and weaponry, and his martial arts attainments are quite deep. He has done a meritorious service in treating the princess's chronic illness. We have decided to grant him the title of Golden Armor Imperial Guard, and reward him with a mansion in the imperial capital, 100 servants, and 1,000 gold ingots." When he finished, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. A 17-year-old youth was granted the title of Golden Armor Imperial Guard. There had never been such a young Golden Armor Imperial Guard in the northern border. The youngest one was at least 40 years old. Not only that, 1,000 gold ingots. That was too much. As everyone knew, the currency of the Spirit Brilliance boundary was copper coins and silver coins. 1 million copper coins equals 1 silver coin, and 1 gold coin was 1 million silver coins. 1 trillion copper coins. This was a huge sum of money that was enough for a family to squander for decades. It could be seen that this time Long Tian was really happy. The reward and recognition for Zhang Xiaofan was absolutely high. Zhang Xiaofan was also quite surprised, but he knew one thing. The tallest tree in the forest was the first to be destroyed by the wind. Moreover, he was only a newcomer in the imperial capital. Such a generous reward would definitely attract covetous eyes. Thinking of this, Jiang Xiaofan made a prompt decision. Reporting to Your Majesty, this golden armor imperial guard is quite awe-inspiring, and it is also what I want. But forget about this ding and gold ingots. I only have one request. Long Tian was also surprised that Jiang Xiaofan was so calm in the face of wealth, and even directly rejected it. But on second thought, Jiang Xiaofan was a genius in both alchemy and weapon cultivation, so it was reasonable that money had no temptation to him. He was suddenly a little curious about Jiang Xiaofan's request, so he said, "Speak." Jiang Xiaofan cupped his hands and said, "My Jiang clan has been away from the imperial capital for hundreds of years. Who doesn't want to bring honor to their ancestors? I want the Jiang clan to move to the imperial capital. Can Your Majesty agree?" Hearing this, Long Tian immediately understood Jiang Xiaofan's intentions. No wonder he didn't refuse money, but an official position and a mansion. It turned out that he already had this plan. But this was not a big deal. The Jiang clan only had a few hundred people, so moving to the imperial capital was not a problem. So he waved his hand and said, "Approved. Thank you for your grace, Your Majesty." Jiang Xiaofan bowed slightly. He was extremely happy in his heart. The Jiang clan could move to the imperial capital. With such abundant spiritual energy and the help of Jiang Xiaofan's elixirs, they would quickly rise. Although they might not be powerful, they would at least be many times stronger than the three great clans of Howling Sky City. At this moment, Mi Yan's eyes turned and he said to Long Tian, "General Jiang must return to Howling Sky City now. Why don't we let him investigate the spirit vein along the way? Wouldn't that be killing two birds with one stone?" Chu Heng and Bai Moxing suddenly frowned. This is bad. Chapter 267. Too scary. For the first time, Yi Xian felt powerless. This green giant was probably at least a minor earth core Xian beast. However, this was also a challenge for him. 8 Desolate Sword, come back. Yi Xian's feet landed on the ground. He summoned the 8 Desolate Sword back and condensed it into a huge sword. 8 Desolate Heaven-Shaking Sword, I'll chop. The huge sword, which was 10 meters long, slashed at the head of the green giant and immediately embedded itself in it. The power of the 8 Desolate Heaven-Shaking Sword and Yi Xian's strength could only cause such a small amount of damage. This green giant's defense was already so strong that it made one's hair stand on end. However, as long as it was effective, Yi Xian had a chance of winning. I'll chop again. Taking advantage of the opportunity when the green giant's feet were knocked into the ground, Yi Xian slashed again, and the cut was deeper. At this time, the green giant crawled out from the ground and rushed towards Yi Xian. Although its speed was very fast, Yi Xian had already expected it. He'd already slashed his sword at its stomach. The little green giant was still sent flying. Just as it got up, it was struck in the head by Yi Xian's sword. Although it's very hard and strong, it's also very stupid. Yi Xian shook his head. Using this method, he kept slashing at the giant's head. After slashing at it for nearly 10 times, Yi Xian finally cut the giant's head to its chest. At this time, the 8 Desolate Heaven-Shaking Sword could not bear it anymore, and was about to collapse. Coincidentally, the huge sword was still in the giant's body. Yi Xian looked at the giant enchanted in his heart. Sonic boom! Immediately, a surge of Dan essence was transmitted into the 8 Desolate Sword. This was like a fuse, and in the next moment, the entire energy sword exploded with a loud bang. An extremely strong shockwave spread out, and an earth-shattering boom resounded through the sky, startling countless birds, beasts, and humans. Boom! What's going on? Could it be that the green giant has appeared? Quick! Everyone quickly returned to the soaring firmament rock. This loud rumbling sound also scared the others half to death, one after another calling over the soaring sky great rocks. However, Yi Xian didn't care about that. He looked at the small giant that was blasted into two by the 8 Desolation Heavenly Sword. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he strode forward and pinched a golden inner core. At that moment, Yi Xian directly swallowed the inner core. In an instant, his aura skyrocketed. What? He has just broken through to the mortal core realm? How is that possible? Yi Xian was shocked. Such a strong Xian beast, but it had just broken through to the mortal core realm. This was a waste of his efforts. The celestial beast's inner core had only increased his devouring points by 310 billion. If he were to include the corpse, it would only be around 400 billion. Damn it, if only I was at the early Earth core stage, then I would definitely be able to break through. Yi Xian shook his head helplessly. Then he swallowed the corpse as well. However, the 1 trillion devouring points in his body had been converted into a devouring crystal. Although he was a little disappointed, his harvest was still pretty good. Right at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared. Yi Xian sensed it was a human. Soon, a middle-aged man walked out from the forest. He was the sect chief of the Soaring Sky Mansion, Lin Shi. That commotion, did you cause it? When Lin Shi saw the small green stones on the ground, he couldn't help but ask. Yes, I met a small green stone man. It had just broken through to the Earth Core realm, but it had the destructive strength and defensive strength of an early Earth Core warrior. Yi Xian told Lin Shi what happened just now. Lin Shi was surprised. I met one as well. This stone man was really hard to deal with. I never expected an early mortal core warrior to be able to deal with it. Sect Chief, are you complimenting me? Yi Xian asked. He felt that Lin Shi had always been hostile towards him. In fact, his father, Yi Chong, could be considered as Lin Shi's junior disciple. He had just stolen the heart of Lin Shi's daughter. Why would he keep thinking about him for so long? Be careful. After saying that, Lin Shi left. Yi Xian was too lazy to think too much about it. He had almost reached the peak of the early mortal core realm, and he only needed 1 or 2 more small green stone men to break through. Even if he couldn't find any, he could just kill some small ones. But what he found strange was, with so many people rushing into the Green Serene Land, they should have alerted the Green Stone Giant. Why hadn't it done anything yet? But right at this moment, rumble! A loud noise suddenly sounded out from the sky. Then someone shouted, Everyone be careful! The Green Source Giant has appeared. What? Greenstone Giant? Yi Xian's heart trembled. He quickly climbed up a big tree and looked around. Sure enough, he found a huge stone man. At this moment, Yi Xian finally understood why no one had been able to find this greenstone giant. It was in the middle of a lake. This greenstone giant was even bigger than the stone statue in Huoyang's cave. It was a giant version of the small greenstone giant. Judging from its height, it was at least 60 meters tall. When it appeared, all the rocks in the sky immediately flew up to 400 meters into the sky. They were all scared out of their wits. Yi Xian. Right at this moment, a rock suddenly descended from the sky. It was Zhou Yan and the others. Yi Xian quickly jumped onto the rocks and flew up into the sky. Before they entered the Green Serene Land, both sects had already made a plan. If the green stone giant appeared, they would immediately fly up into the sky. They couldn't provoke it at all costs. What a terrifying body. Could its punch be comparable to a flying dragon's? On top of the rocks, Judge Song couldn't help but ask. He was 2 meters tall, which was considered very tall for a human. But, compared to this greenstone giant, he was like an ant. Master, is this greenstone giant at the early heavenly core realm? Or is it at the initial heavenly core realm? Song Suijing couldn't help but turn around and ask Zhou Yan. Zhou Yan thought for a moment, then he said, I'm not sure. According to Sect Chief Mo, this greenstone giant has existed for a few hundred years. I think it should be at least at the initial heavenly core realm. Yi Xian, what do you think? Yi Xian stared at the green mountain in front of him from 100 meters up in the sky. Then he shook his head and said, No, it should be at the mid-heavenly core realm. Why do you think so? Zhou Yan was surprised. I have a feeling. Also, the greenstone giant mentioned by Sect Chief Mo is emerald green. But this greenstone giant's color is a bit darker. Yi Xian said slowly. But his blood was boiling. This greenstone giant was very similar to the flying dragon he saw in the Great Tang Dynasty's capital city. You mean? Zhou Yan's eyes widened. That celestial greenstone, I think it was swallowed by it. Look, it's the green sparrow. Yi Xian pointed his finger. Everyone followed his finger and looked over. They saw a petite figure flying towards the greenstone giant. End of chapter. Chapter 268. It really is the green spirit bird. It seems that the celestial bluestone has been eaten by the green source giant. Damn it! Zhou Yan cursed. It seemed that they had wasted their efforts this time. However, after the green source giant came out, There was no movement at all, which made everyone feel a little strange. At this time, almost everyone was flying on their mounts. Even if the green source giant wanted to attack, there was no way it could do so. On the other side, the people from the Heavenly Yuan sect had also flown high. They did not dare to act rashly and could only watch quietly. If they angered the green source giant and caused it to leave the green remote land, then the Heavenly Yuan sect and the southern region would be in trouble. Damn it, this green source giant must have swallowed the celestial blue stone. This is troublesome. Emoziun looked at the green source giant below and could not help but curse. It had been more than half a month since the celestial blue stone was snatched away by the green spirit bird. The situation had become a little troublesome. Supreme Elder, what should we do now? Emoziun could not help but turn his head and ask Yi Tianlang. We have stepped into the green remote land, which is the green source giant's territory. Logically speaking, it should be very angry, but this green source giant is unusually calm, which is really strange. Tianlang shook his head. He also did not know what was going on. Then, Emoziun wanted to ask more. But at this time, the green source giant suddenly roared. Then it headed in a certain direction. Where is it going? Everyone asked puzzledly at the same time they followed behind it. Yi Xian, who was on the back of the soaring sky rock, was also confused. This green source giant was probably the overlord-level Xian beast in the entire Tianshui continent. Did it just wake up and want to take a walk? The green source giant left a big footprint with each step. With every step it took, the ground trembled violently. Soon he walked out of the green serene land. Now Emoziun's face had already sunk to the bottom. Perhaps he knew where the green source giant was going. Everyone listen up, stop it from going to the Heavenly Yuan sect. Emoziun immediately yelled. When the others in the air heard this, they immediately reacted. Wasn't this the direction to the Heavenly Yuan sect? In an instant, the disciples of the Heavenly Yuan sect all cried out in alarm. They all circled around the green source giant and began to attack. So it's in the direction of the Sky Yuan sect. This is going to be troublesome. As the Supreme Elder spoke, he also shouted. Everyone in the soaring sky mansion, listen up. Assist the Heavenly Yuan sect. The green source giant was most likely a late Heavenly Core warrior. If it ran to the Heavenly Yuan sect, the entire Heavenly Yuan sect would be destroyed. After hearing Zhou Yan's order, the great rocks in the sky all flew in front of the green source giant, attacking together with the Heavenly Yuan sect experts. In an instant, tens of thousands of attacks were unleashed and bombarded the green source giant. However, the green source giant remained unscathed and did not react at all. It continued to advance forward. The Heavenly Yuan sect was not far from the green serene land. If one were to ride a mount, it would take at most 2 days to arrive. What was even more frustrating was that this green source giant's speed was even faster than the great rocks. Only those higher-ranked great rocks and heavenly thunderhawks could catch up with it. In other words, in less than 2 days, the green source giant would arrive at the Heavenly Yuan sect. Emoziun and the others were burning with anxiety. However, even with the strength of a late earthly core warrior and a mid-ranked earthly weapon, they still couldn't do anything to this green source giant. This green source giant's defense had reached its limit. Perhaps not many people in the heavenly water continent could break through it. What should we do? What should we do? Emoziun's heart was burning with anxiety. The Heavenly Yuan sect had been passed down for thousands of years. Was it going to be destroyed in his generation? The green source giant's speed was very stable. It was neither fast nor slow. The tens of thousands of attacks had no effect on it. It was like a moving mountain. Soon half a day had passed. Emoziun racked his brains, but he still couldn't come up with a solution. During this period of time, he wanted to talk to the green source giant, but he didn't get any response. At this time, the Grand Elder of the Soaring Sky Mansion rode a great rocks over and shouted, Sect Master Mo, quickly return to the Heavenly Yuan sect and evacuate the disciples. Only half a day had passed. If they still didn't take action, the Heavenly Yuan sect would really be destroyed. Emoziun gritted his teeth and said, Grand Elder, I'll leave this place to you. After saying that, the others on the Heavenly Thunder Hawk jumped onto their other mounts. Then, Emoziun sat on the Xian Beast Heavenly Thunder Hawk and returned to the Heavenly Yuan sect. As for the others, they moved around the green source giant. On a great rocks. Master, is the Heavenly Yuan sect really going to be destroyed? Song Suijing couldn't help but ask. Although the green source giant didn't go to the soaring sky mansion, the Heavenly Yuan sect was still a great sect with thousands of years of history. It would be a pity if it was destroyed like this. There's no other way. Zhou Yan shook his head. Every step the green source giant took shook the hearts of the Heavenly Yuan sect's disciples. However, this was something that couldn't be stopped unless the experts from the central state came together. Yixian glanced at a nearby Heavenly Thunder Hawk. There was a delicate figure standing on the Heavenly Thunder Hawk. This figure stood still in the cold wind, looking very sad. Although Lin Shuer had only been in the Heavenly Yuan sect for 2 years, her feelings for the sect were not any less than the other disciples. Now that she saw that her sect was about to be destroyed, her eyes became wet. For cultivators, the sect was another home. Now that their home was about to be destroyed, many of the Heavenly Yuan sect's disciples cried. "Sai, who asked you to be greedy?" Yixian sighed in his heart. If they didn't come to this green serene land, wouldn't everything be fine? At this time a figure suddenly jumped over. Yixian turned his head and saw that Song Suijing had run to Lin Shuer's side. This girl, I don't think she's here to gloat, Yixian thought to himself. He didn't just like Song Suijing's appearance. Although she was a little delicate before, she was no longer like that after joining the Soaring Heaven Mansion. He didn't think she would do something like adding insult to injury. Sure enough, his worries were unnecessary. Song Suijing had gone to comfort Lin Shuer. Is there really no other way? Is our Heavenly Yuan sect really going to be trampled by this dark beast? What can we do? This green source giant is immovable. Unless there's a heavenly core warrior, there's no other way. My sister is still in the sect, damn it. Don't worry, the sect chief has brought a few sect elders back. I'm sure they can evacuate everyone before the green source giant reaches the Heavenly Yuan sect. All the Heavenly Yuan sect's disciples had ugly expressions on their faces. This was the most torturous day they had ever had. End of chapter. Chapter 269. The green source giant continued to move forward. After a day, it finally stepped into the territory of the Heavenly Yuan sect. At this time there was no one in the Heavenly Yuan sect. However, there was a Heavenly Thunder Eagle in the sky. It was the sect master of the Heavenly Yuan sect, Emoziun. It's finally here. Emoziun stood on the Heavenly Thunder Eagle and revealed a self-deprecating smile. Previously, when he agreed to enter the Green Serene Land with the Soaring Sky Mansion, he had thought of many outcomes. For example, he could successfully find the Celestial Blue Stone or suffer heavy casualties. However, he never thought that the end would be the destruction of the sect. Although the disciples of the Heavenly Yuan sect had already left and gathered in a safe place, and Emoziun had already kept all the important items in the sect, the Heavenly Yuan sect was the foundation of the sect. If it was gone, where would they go? Rumble. The green source giant's target was indeed the Heavenly Yuan sect. It quickly walked over and fiercely stomped on the ground. The entire mountain shook violently as if it was going to collapse. The disciples in the sky could only watch helplessly. They could not do anything to stop it. At this time, the green source giant had already stepped into the Heavenly Yuan sect and destroyed countless houses and walls. That's strange. Is this green source giant looking for something? Could it be that it's not just for revenge? Many people had such a guess in their hearts. They thought that the green source giant must be here for revenge because they had invaded the Green Serene Land. However, the truth was not that simple. However, they were overthinking. The green source giant stepped into a huge square in the center of the Heavenly Yuan sect, and suddenly let out a loud roar. This roar was even louder than Yixian's 8 Desolation heaven-shaking sword. Look, the stone on the green source giant's body is moving. Everyone focused their eyes and found that it was indeed so. The green source giant was 60 meters tall. Each of its feet was bigger than a courtyard. At this time its entire body was trembling. Was it quivering? When Yixian saw this, he also felt that something was wrong. He guessed that something big was about to happen. Not good. Everyone retreat. Yixian's eyes suddenly widened as he shouted. Everyone at the side was shocked. Zhou Yan hurriedly asked, Yixian, what's going on? Let's go, we're going to die if we're any slower. As Yixian spoke, the soaring sky rock beneath his feet quickly rose into the air. The others were skeptical, but it was better to be safe than sorry. Even if Yixian's intuition was wrong, the losses had already been fixed, right? Immediately, everyone rode their mounts into the sky. Some turned around and flew away. However, just as they retreated from the surroundings of the heavenly Yuan sect, the green source giant roared again. Then its body suddenly exploded. Rumble! The green source giant's body suddenly exploded, shooting out countless rocks like an erupting volcano. These large rocks were extremely fast and flew in all directions. Some of the soaring sky rocks and sky thunder eagles were unable to dodge in time, and were directly smashed. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 soaring sky rocks and sky thunder eagles fell to the ground. Not good. Yixian's expression changed because he saw a huge rock coming towards them. Damn it, let's attack together. Grand Elder Zhou hurriedly walked to the edge and condensed his thick Jindan essence. He directly slashed at the huge rock. He did not say this to the others, but to Yixian because the others present had not reacted at all. Yixian directly condensed the 8 Desolation Heaven-Shaking Sword, and used it to perform the mid-grade Earth-tier martial art, Sky-Splitting Slash. 2 powerful slashes broke through the air. Zhou Yan's slash directly embedded itself into the huge rock, and only slightly reduced its speed. Meanwhile, Yixian's attack was completely useless. Seeing that the huge rock was about to hit the soaring sky rock, if Zhou Yan and Yixian wanted to, they could jump onto the nearby soaring sky rock. But what about the others? They could not carry everyone. Damn it! A thought flashed through Yixian's mind. He leaped up and suddenly blasted a palm at the soaring sky rock. The huge palm print hit the soaring sky rock's back and forcefully knocked the soaring sky rock down. This displacement just happened to allow it to escape from the huge rock's trajectory. However, Yixian was also hit by the huge rock because of this. Bang! Yixian was ruthless. He slammed into the boulder and almost fainted. There were many bones all over his body that were broken. Most importantly, he was also pushed by the huge rock and flew hundreds of thousands of meters into the air. At this moment, Song Suijing finally reacted and immediately cried out, Yixian! Grand Elder gritted his teeth. The huge rock speed was not something that the soaring sky rock could catch up to. Moreover, there were still many huge rocks in the air. They had to dodge them. Land! Grand Elder shouted to the soaring sky rock at his feet. He realized that the huge rocks that were ejected from this huge explosion were very powerful and very dangerous in the air. On the contrary, it was safer to be near the ground. They quickly descended, and with good luck, they managed to survive the crisis. Looking at the thousands of huge rocks erupting in the sky, Song Suijing thought of the giant lava tortoise that day. However, now was not the time to think about this. Master Yixian, Song Suijing was about to cry. That huge rock was already beyond her ability to react, and Yixian was most likely going to die after being hit by the huge rock. Don't worry, that little guy's life is tough. He definitely won't die. Grand Elder comforted her in a very firm tone. Although that was what Song Suijing said, she was still looking at the sky. Although Yixian might not die on the huge rock, jumping from 1,000 meters in the air would definitely cause him to fall to pieces. At this moment, Yixian was sticking close to the huge rock. He had already risen more than 1,000 meters in the air. This huge rock was too fast and it was difficult for him to escape. However, if he did not escape, he would definitely be crushed to death when the huge rock fell. I can only wait for it to reach the highest point before I jump away. Yixian quickly took out a healing pill and swallowed it. He quickly thought about it in his mind, looking for something that could help him survive or martial arts. Found it! Yixian's eyes lit up. He found a mid-grade martial arts that could condense Jindan essence into wings. Although it could not allow him to fly, it could allow him to glide. The boulder was still rising, and Yixian's mood was terrible. From the beginning, he knew that something was going to happen, but he didn't expect it to be like a volcano erupting, and there was even a boulder that smashed towards them. What was even worse was that this boulder was extremely powerful, and it was probably the one that erupted the furthest. Finally, after the huge rock rose to a height of 1,500 meters, it began to fall. End of chapter. Chapter 270. Now's the time. Yixian's eyes flashed. Suddenly he flipped over and jumped onto the boulder. Then he stomped on it with all his might. Instantly, a pair of Jindan essence wings grew out of his back. Then, he flew in the direction he came from. When Yixian turned around, he realized that the place behind him was a mess. Craters could be seen everywhere. However, what shocked him the most was not the destructive power of the boulders. He saw that the boulders on the ground began to shake. Then they suddenly broke apart. Then small green giants crawled out of the boulders one by one. It's that kind of Xian beast. Yixian's eyes widened. As far as the eye could see, there were already hundreds and thousands of small green giants. Oh no, Kai Jing and the others. His heart trembled. He hurriedly flew in the direction he estimated. However, when he was only 200 meters above the ground, a green figure suddenly swept over. What's that? He squinted and realized that it was the green spirit bird that stole the celestial stone that day. There was a path to heaven, but you didn't take it. There was no door to hell, but you barged in. Yixian was furious. If it wasn't for the green spirit bird that day, how could such a thing have happened? The Heaven Branch's foundation was destroyed, and the two sects suffered countless casualties. This grudge must be avenged. At that moment, Yixian took out a mid-grade earth-grade bow and arrow. He raised his hand and shot. Soul-severing arrow. The soul-severing arrow pierced through the air. However, the green spirit bird was small and agile. It dodged the arrow directly. Fire dragon arrow. Yixian shot another arrow. It was dodged again. At that moment, the green spirit bird was already close to Yixian. It opened its sharp beak and let out a piercing shriek. I fell here that day. How can I fall for it twice? After seeing the green spirit bird, Yixian instinctively used his Jindan essence to protect his ears. The shriek was mostly blocked by his Jindan essence. Yixian's body was extremely strong, so it didn't have much effect on him. In the next moment, Yixian condensed a core essence sword. Give him a taste of his own medicine. Explode all 3 orifices. After 3 muffled sounds, the huge sword suddenly chopped down. It was easily dodged by the green nether bird. But the 8 desolation heaven-shaking sword slash had a second effect. Sonic boom. Buzz. The Dan Yuan greatsword instantly exploded. The explosion point was only a few meters away from the green nether bird. In an instant, the extremely strong impact shook the green nether bird's body. At the same time, the rumbling sound of the explosion also entered the green nether bird's ears. The green serene bird was petite and extremely fast. Its claws could easily penetrate rocks. It also had a special chirp. It was an extremely difficult Xian beast to deal with. Unfortunately, it had walked right into the trap and wanted to cause trouble for Yixian. After the 8 desolation heaven-shaking sword exploded, the green nether bird's eyes turned white and fell down. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yixian twisted his body and quickly swept towards it. Crack! The 8 desolation sword suddenly cracked open. 8 desolation wind-killing formation skybreak. A horizontal whirlwind swept past the green nether bird's body and pierced through its body. Its heart was also crushed into pieces, and it died instantly. Yixian flew over and placed his hand on the green nether bird's body. Then he immediately devoured it. Ding, the host has devoured a Xian beast's corpse. The reward is 300 billion devour points. Ding, the host has devoured a Xian beast's inner core. The reward is 2 devour crystals. Ding, the host has broken through to the late mortal core realm. After hearing the notification in his mind, Yixian's eyes flashed with a fierce light. When he was at the early mortal core realm, he was able to kill the green nether giant. Now that he was at the late mortal core realm, it shouldn't be a big problem for him to deal with the green nether giant. But he still needed to find Song Suijing and the others first. He was circling in the air. His Dan Yuan wings couldn't be flapped, so he could only glide. Right now, there were no more boulders in the air within 2,000 meters of the heavenly Yuan sect, but there were many craters on the ground. Suddenly, a huge body blocked Yixian's line of sight. He focused his eyes and saw that it was a heavenly thunder hawk. Yixian! A familiar voice sounded out. Yixian focused his eyes and saw that it was Zhou Yan. Not only that, Song Suijing and the others were here as well. Yixian let out a sigh of relief. Without saying anything, he shattered his Dan Yuan wings and landed on the heavenly thunder hawk. When Zhou Yan saw that Yixian was safe and sound, he was shocked as well. Just now he saw Yixian being hit by a huge boulder with his own eyes. He saw that Yixian was hit by a boulder. But what he didn't know was that Yi Xian was still severely injured. Many of his bones were broken, but he was still holding on. Right after Yi Xian landed on the ground, a beautiful figure immediately rushed into his arms. "I'm glad you're all right." Yi Xian patted Song Suijing's back and carefully checked. No one was injured except for the soaring sky rock he just slapped. "I knew you're tough, you won't die." Grand Elder Zhou Yan walked over and said, "Stop talking nonsense, that green source giant might unleash a second round of attacks. You guys better stay away from it." Hearing this, Yi Xian turned around and looked. He saw that the green source giant was indeed accumulating energy, and it might unleash another round of attacks. "Master, what about you?" Judge Song asked in shock. "2/3 of us fell down from the boulder just now. There are so many disciples here, I can't just leave them to die. You guys retreat to a distance of 10,000 meters away." After saying that, Zhou Yan leapt down from the boulder. Originally, there were more than 100 flying mounts, but now there were only 30 left. With so many divine core warriors on the ground, even if Zhou Yan had to die, he had to protect them. Yi Xian was hesitating as well. After the green source giant swallowed the celestial rock, it seemed like it had undergone some sort of mutation, and so many little Xian beasts had suddenly appeared. This was really frightening. He didn't know if there were any heavenly core little giants down there. But he couldn't just leave with Song Suijing and the others. "You guys go first, I'll go down and help as well." Yi Xian turned around and looked at the others. "I want to go as well," Song Suijing hastily said. "We're also disciples of Soaring Sky Mansion, we can't just leave like this." Judge Song took a step forward as well. Zhonglu walked over as well and asked, "If the soaring sky rock flew away, how are you going to leave?" "This soaring sky rock is too slow, we need to be at least a Xian beast in order to save the others. If we are hit by the boulder, it will only add to the pressure." Yi Xian shook his head. Although this sentence was harsh, it was indeed the truth. Right now, there were a total of 7 people on the soaring sky rock's back. Excluding Yi Xian, the strongest was Zhonglu, who was at the late mortal core realm. The next strongest were Song Suijing, Judge Song, Jiangyu, and 2 other disciples who had just broken through to the mortal core realm. With all these people gathered together, they could even fight an earth core warrior. But there were too many green source giants down there, and if they all went down together, it would only add more pressure to Yi Xian and the others. End of chapter. Chapter 271. "Okay, then be careful." Zhonglu nodded. "Senior brother, you?" Song Suijing hurriedly turned her head to look at Zhonglu. Yi Xian comforted her. "Don't worry, those green source giants can't fly. I have wings, I can still escape if I can't beat them." "But..." Song Suijing was still worried. "No buts. If you guys stay here a little longer, we'll be late to evacuate. Hurry up and leave, I'll go down first." Yi Xian lightly patted Song Suijing's head, then jumped down. Song Suijing looked at his back as he left, feeling bad. If she was a little stronger, perhaps she could be with Yi Xian. When Zhonglu saw Yi Xian jump down, he immediately ordered the soaring skyrock to escape. As long as they escaped the range of the eruption, they would be safe. Although there was a lot of danger below, Yi Xian still jumped down without a care for his own safety. Firstly, he wanted to save his fellow disciples, and secondly, he wanted to hunt those green source giants. Killing hundreds and thousands of Xian beasts was a huge amount of experience points. A single small earth core green nether bird had given him 2 devour crystals. If he could kill more of them, he might be able to break through to the earth core realm. Not to mention, his physique was so strong that he could jump 100 meters in the air. Even if he couldn't beat them, he could still escape. As long as his luck wasn't too bad, there shouldn't be any problems. Experience points, here I come. Thinking about this, Yi Xian's eyes lit up, and he immediately dove down. However, at this moment he suddenly saw a familiar figure. Lin Shuer? I didn't expect that even she would be knocked down. Yi Xian focused his eyes and saw that Lin Shuer was injured, and she was fighting a green source giant. He immediately turned around and rushed towards Lin Shuer. On the ground, Lin Shuer was holding a mid-rank earth weapon, and fighting a green source giant that had just entered the earth core realm. No, it should be said that it was a waste of energy, because Lin Shuer's attack couldn't cause any damage to her opponent. Why is its defense so strong? Lin Shuer suddenly felt powerless. She had just broken through to the earth core realm, and she also had a mid-rank earth weapon and a mid-rank earth martial skill. However, she still couldn't cause any damage to the stone golem. How strong was its defense? Most importantly, if they continued to delay and were surrounded by the other green source giants, they would be in danger. Right at this moment. Do you need help? Suddenly a voice entered her ears. She turned her head and saw a figure descending from the sky. Ka! Yixian crashed down, and the Dan Yuan greatsword in his hand directly hacked into the head of the green source giant. You're still short? His brows furrowed slightly, and he quickly drew his sword and slashed down again. The greatsword cut into the small green giant's body, and then there was a rumbling sound, and the small green giant was split into two. It had been shaken into two halves. This time, the green source giant's defense seems to be even higher than before. Could it be the effect of the celestial limestone? Yixian murmured in his heart. He turned his head and asked, "Are you okay?" Lin Shuer was stunned. Even she couldn't do anything to this green source giant. But Yixian only used 2 moves to kill it. Why was the gap between them so big again? "Why are you here?" Lin Shuer reacted and asked in shock. "Can you ask something more interesting?" Yixian shook his head. When he saw Lin Shuer's left arm hanging by her side, he threw her a powerful healing pill and continued, "Follow me. Don't run around." He put away the corpse beside his feet, and then ran in a certain direction. Lin Shuer was stunned for a moment, but she ate the pill and followed him. The first round of eruption hit dozens of soaring sky rocks and sky thunder eagles, which meant that hundreds of people fell to the ground. After a few steps, Yixian ran into a disciple from the Heavenly Yuan sect. Right now, he was fighting a green source giant. Luckily, this green source giant was small, and at most it had just broken through to the mortal core realm. If not, he would have been dead. After Yixian appeared, he cut the green source giant in half with a swing of his sword. After that, he quickly devoured the corpse and threw the Xian beast core into his devouring space. The disciple was startled. He turned around and saw Lin Shuer coming out from the forest. He immediately shouted, "Senior sister! Follow him, don't fall behind," Lin Shuer said as she started chasing after Yixian. The disciple didn't dare stay any longer. He quickly followed her. Yixian's feeling the range of his detection had exceeded 1,000 meters, and this gave him a lot of convenience. First, he could sense the size of the green source giants within range, and second, he could find his own people. If he ran into those big green source giants, Yixian would deliberately avoid them because those green source giants were at least at the late Earth core realm. Luckily, there weren't many green source giants at this level, so Yixian was always successful. Soon he had gathered a group of 10 people. Of course, along the way they mostly saw corpses, soaring sky rocks, sky thunder eagles, and humans. Not only that, they also ran into another group, and the leader of this group was the Grand Elder of the Heavenly Yuan sect, Tianlang. "Shuer, I'm glad you're okay." When Tianlang saw Lin Shuer, he let out a sigh of relief. "Grand Elder, where's Master?" Lin Shuer couldn't help but ask. "I don't know, there's no time to think about that. You guys follow me, we'll talk after we get to a safe place." Tianlang shook his head. Then he led the group of 20 people and prepared to leave. He was the strongest person in the 2 sects, so it wasn't a problem for him to lead a group of people away, as long as the green source giant didn't explode again. There were disciples of the Heavenly Yuan sect and disciples of the Soaring Sky Mansion in this group. With Tianlang around, Yixian was relieved. He paused for a moment before quietly turning around. However, at this moment, "Where are you going?" Lin Shuer saw Yixian's figure from the corner of her eyes, so she quickly asked. When the others heard this, they also stopped in their tracks. "Of course I'm going back to continue hunting Xian beasts," Yixian casually replied. "Are you crazy? What if we run into a giant?" Lin Shuer asked in disbelief. Tianlang also tried to dissuade him. "Kid, I've seen people who don't care about their lives, but I've never seen someone as reckless as you. In this situation, even I might die, so you should follow us and leave this place first." "Senior, I'm not a kid, I know what I'm doing. I'll leave first." Yixian was too lazy to explain, so he directly turned around and left. Chapter 272. With a roar, Yihao led the crowd and quickly rushed to the mound on the right. At this time, the enemies realized that they had been exposed. They quickly took off the branches and leaves and camouflage on their bodies and began to fight back. "Tim. We have been lying down for so long in vain. Archers, Shoot! An expert at the early stage of the sky martial arts realm standing at the back quickly ordered at this time. A group of people who were shot by the archers raised their hands and pulled the bowstrings. Arrows with dark green liquid rained down on the crowd like raindrops. Yi Hao shouted in a deep voice. He raised his hand and waved twice, signaling everyone to gather. Then he shouted and opened his hands. A huge green light shield directly appeared in front of him. Zhang Xiaofan still remembered that Yi Hao resisted the attack of the roasting fire bulls by himself, and stopped tens of thousands of powerful bulls to buy time for the guards to retreat. Blocking the arrows was nothing to him. Zhang Xiaofan was clear about this, so he asked Yi Hao to face the enemy on the right. A black figure instantly rushed out and directly rushed into the crowd. The enemy at the early stage of the sky martial arts realm held a long sword and shouted, "How dare you block the attack of my team's archers? I think you are tired of living. I will break your shield." After saying that, he was about to step forward. At this time a chuckle sounded behind the man. "I say, where are you looking?" "What?" The man turned his head in surprise, but the moment he turned his head, a palm directly penetrated his chest, pinched his heart and came out from his back. Taper killed this so-called master of the sky martial arts realm with one blow. In front of the peak of the martial king realm, he could only be pressed to the ground and ravaged. This attack was silent, and even the group of enemies in the earth martial arts realm who had begun to regroup in front of them did not notice it at all. Shoot! When the enemies in the earth martial arts realm approached Yi Hao, their arrows also stopped. At this time Yi Hao withdrew his shield, and the Imperial Guard shot sharp arrows. They directly killed more than a dozen enemies in the earth martial arts realm, and they were directly shot into hedgehogs in midair. They should not have thought that they had reached the earth martial arts realm, but could not escape the arrows of the Xian martial arts realm. At this time Yi Hao led the Imperial Guards and really collided with these people. Taper began to kill these people wantonly at the back of the team, and Zhang Xiaofan's experience bar was also slowly wriggling. It was so King awesome. It had been a long time since he saw the experience bar increase. Although it only wriggled a little after killing so many people, it was already very exciting for Zhang Xiaofan. Of course, at this time the mound on the left was not for nothing. There were more people, and there were also more experts in the earth martial arts realm, so Zhang Xiaofan left them for himself, because he knew that these people could not do anything to him. After all, when Zhang Xiaofan was ruthless, he was not afraid of them at all. However, the Imperial Guards behind him were different. After all, they had spirit stones to help them cultivate, but these Imperial Guards had not even entered the spiritual vein to cultivate, let alone the dragon vein. They could not compete at all. It was because Zhang Xiaofan knew this that he let the Imperial Guards go to the main battlefield on the right. When the battle started, Zhang Xiaofan quickly let the 4th and 5th teams directly change direction to support the battlefield on the right, and he led the 3rd team to intercept. 1,000 Imperial Guards were enough. Humph! Zhang Xiaofan, I must avenge my son today. At the front of the crowd, an expert in the late stage of the sky martial arts realm walked forward quickly with 2 long swords. Avenge your son? Zhang Xiaofan murmured. He then looked at the man, 7 Luminaries sect, holding 2 swords. This is the dual sword style? Zhang Xiaofan then remembered the young man who questioned and provoked him on the stage during the selection of the martial arts competition, and was eventually killed by him. That person seemed to be called Mu Feng. The reason why Zhang Xiaofan could remember was that the dual sword style was too useful. Mu Feng, the son of the 7 Luminaries sect master. So this man was the sect master of 7 Luminaries sect? You are Mu Yuan? Zhang Xiaofan looked at the man and asked in a deep voice. The man was very surprised that Zhang Xiaofan could actually know his identity, so he said, "It seems that you know a lot, but it's useless. Today, all of you will die here, no one will leave alive." After saying that, he raised his hand, and the archers drew their bows and arrows. In an instant, thousands of arrows were shot towards him. Among these people, there were 700 to 800 experts in the earth martial arts realm, and half of them were in the Xian martial arts realm. Compared to the battlefield on the right, there were 100 to 200 more experts in the earth martial arts realm. 3 rounds of arrows were shot. At this time, Mu Yuan had already led the experts in the earth martial arts realm to rush towards Zhang Xiaofan. Zhang Xiaofan was not afraid at all. He opened his hands and suddenly, An invisible energy wrapped around him. He just stood in front of the 1,000 people. Yihao had the bloodline shield of the spirit turtle in the deep pool. This Zhang Xiaofan could not compare. But his spirit turtle armor was not to be trifled with. Although the spirit turtle armor could only protect himself, it could still be adjusted to size. As long as he adjusted it big enough, the arrows would not be able to hit them. Whoosh! Zhang Xiaofan, who was blessed with the spirit turtle armor, blocked in front of everyone with a ball-shaped barrier. 3 rounds of arrows actually did not break it. This also surprised Mu Feng a little. Zhang Xiaofan had been cultivating in the dragon vein for half a year, and now his cultivation had reached the peak of the earth martial arts realm. However, he had not heard of any bloodline power from him. To be able to block so many arrows in one breath, he really had some ability. However, seeing that Zhang Xiaofan's face was a little pale at this time, the corners of his mouth rose. He knew that Zhang Xiaofan's martial qi had also been consumed a lot, which meant that he was one step closer to death. At this time, Mu Yuan had already come in front of Zhang Xiaofan with both swords. Zhang Xiaofan shouted, "Behind me, I tell you to rush, then come up." After saying that, Zhang Xiaofan instantly activated the absolute divine steps. The Tai Huang sword appeared in his left hand, and he directly rushed forward. Wind blade. Zhang Xiaofan raised the long sword in his hand. The Tai Huang sword mixed with powerful wind elements instantly raged out, and 3 sword qi directly blasted towards Mu Yuan and the experts of the earth martial arts realm. Zhang Xiaofan was an expert at the peak of the earth martial arts realm, and he was a real expert at the peak of the earth martial arts realm. Different from them who had used spirit stones to quickly reach the earth martial arts realm, Zhang Xiaofan's martial qi was more vigorous and pure, not as unstable as theirs. Mu Yuan was not afraid of Zhang Xiaofan's attack because he was an expert of the sky martial arts realm, but the others could not. Therefore, these experts of the earth martial arts realm all slowed down, ready to dodge the wind blade. Mu Yuan rushed forward with the anger of revenge, crossed the 2 swords in his hands, and suddenly slashed forward. Fierce martial qi lingered on the blades of the 2 swords. The 2 earth-level weapons, together with Mu Yuan's realm, actually blocked Zhang Xiaofan's powerful attack. He dispersed the middle of Zhang Xiaofan's 3 wind blades, and instantly rushed toward Zhang Xiaofan. The 2 sides moved forward, leaving a gap in the middle, and they all gathered in the middle to dodge. At this time, Zhang Xiaofan's martial qi had been consumed by more than half, and the spirit tortoiseshell just now was really a bit too much for him. Mu Yuan rushed forward, the blade of his sword shining with cold light, ready to launch a fatal blow to Zhang Xiaofan. Die! Following Mu Yuan's shout, the blade of his sword was already stabbing toward Zhang Xiaofan's chest at an extremely fast speed. At this time, Zhang Xiaofan's eyes flashed with thousands of thoughts. The moment the tip of the sword collided with his chest, he disappeared in the next second. Mu Yuan missed and he hurriedly stopped. His Yi almost instantly extended and locked onto Zhang Xiaofan's position. He quickly turned around and shouted, "Get out of the way!" Seeing the order from the faction leader, everyone reacted at this time. At this time, Zhang Xiaofan brandished his long sword, and 3 rays of sword qi blasted from behind them. The 2 rays of sword qi just now happened to merge together, and when they turned around and saw the attack, they quickly retreated to dodge. Blocking on both sides and blocking the way back, he could only move towards the gap in Mu Yuan's defense. Everyone gathered together and retreated towards the gap together. "That's all you've got." Speaking of this, Zhang Xiaofan's right hand flashed, and instantly a long sword appeared in his hand. He was standing at the position of the gap. What he held in his hand was the Celestial Destroyer sword. The burning flame in the blade of the sword shone on Zhang Xiaofan's cold-side face. He smiled contemptuously at the crowd. With this little ability, they wanted to kill his imperial guards. Everyone felt the powerful power exuded by Zhang Xiaofan, and they were all frightened. The combat martial body was activated. Zhang Xiaofan's strength was already at the peak of the earth martial arts realm. When the combat martial body was activated, his strength doubled, and he directly reached the strength of an expert of the sky martial arts realm. Fire. Sickle. This was the strongest attack that Zhang Xiaofan could make. Just now he swallowed the moon cooling pill in an instant, and his martial qi had recovered a lot. This move of Fire Sickle gathered about 70% of his martial chi, and it could be said that the power was quite amazing. The powerful power of a 10th grade immortal grade weapon, the support of the fire element of the bright bird, and Zhang Xiaofan's current strength. The power of this attack was self-evident. Boom! The blade swept across, and the flame instantly filled the small space surrounded by the wind blades. There were bursts of wailing in the sea of fire, but in just a few seconds, they were turned into ashes in this flame. The fire sickle raged in a super large range with a radius of about 150 meters, instantly killing 500 or 600 experts of the earth martial arts realm who were tied up by the wind blades. Zhang Xiaofan's experience bar moved slightly. At this time, Mu Yuan was standing behind Zhang Xiaofan, and his face was green. This was not King human. One person directly killed more than 80% of his strongest combat power, and it was just a face-to-face encounter. How could he fight like this? He only had a few subordinates of the Xian martial arts realm left. Looking at the hill on the right, Yi Hao led the people to rush to the sand, and the taper shuttled through the crowd. In the face of the experts of the martial king realm, these people had no power to fight back at all. It was like cutting melons and vegetables. In a short while, the area around the taper was cleared. Mu Yuan saw that the ambush had failed, and the situation was lost. It could be said that the mission had completely failed. His eyes were red, and he stared fiercely at Zhang Xiaofan. Then, holding the two swords, he suddenly turned around and rushed toward the 1,000 Imperial Guards. F***CK. Zhang Xiaofan was shocked. There was such a move? He couldn't beat him, but he actually attacked his people. Uncle could tolerate it, but Aunt couldn't. Attack him. Chapter 273. Lang didn't even turn his head as he replied. That kid from the Soaring Heaven Mansion was besieged by more than 20 green source giants. Among them, there were even 4 early Earth Core Realm warriors. I never thought that he would be able to kill them all. As soon as these words were spoken, the rest of the people on the Heavenly Thunder Eagle were extremely shocked. Even a small Earth Core stage martial artist would find it extremely difficult to kill a small Earth Core stage green source giant. However, Yi Xian was able to do it by himself. Furthermore, he was fighting 1 against 20. This was simply monstrous. Lin Shuer was also looking into the distance. Although she couldn't see clearly, she could see a lot of green source giants heading towards a certain direction. Presumably, that was where Yi Xian was. Back then, when Yi Xian fought with him, his strength seemed to be only slightly stronger than hers. However, in less than half a month, the gap between her and Yi Xian had been rapidly widened. This caused her to be unable to figure it out. Sect Master is over there. Not good, there is a green source giant at the late Earth Core realm. You guys stay here, I'll go and help. Lang suddenly said. He then jumped off the Heavenly Thunder Eagle and rushed over. He saw a figure suddenly appear on Yi Xian's side. It was the Sect Master of the Heavenly Yuan Sect, Mo Ziyun. More importantly, he was being chased by a green source giant that was around 6 to 7 meters tall. At the same time, Yi Xian, who was using his gliding wings to kill the green source giants, also saw a huge figure. Fuck, I lured a big guy over. Yi Xian's body trembled as he cursed in his heart. A late Earth Core realm green source giant. Even if he ate an energetic pill, he wouldn't be able to deal with it. Kid, let's deal with it together. Mo Ziyun attracted the attention of the green source giant and shouted loudly. Coincidentally, Yi Xian had just finished cleaning up the green source giants. He sighed helplessly and rushed over. Sect Master Mo, you should have just run away. Why did you lure it over to me? Yi Xian said helplessly. It's not easy to find a profound core profound beast. When Mo Ziyun saw Yi Xian approaching, he immediately stopped in his tracks and dodged to the side. Then he sent out a palm strike. Bang! The green origin giant beast that was chasing after them was hit head-on. It lost its footing and fell to the ground. The inner core of a profound beast that has reached the profound Earth Core realm. This time, our two sects can use this opportunity to grow stronger. You hold him back. Mo Ziyun shouted as he rushed forward and started attacking crazily. He had already discovered that these green source giants had very strong defenses, but their insides were actually very weak. Therefore, when he used his palm technique, the effect was very good. You want to break through to the Heavenly Core realm with the profound beast's core? I don't think it's that easy. If a late Earth Core warrior wants to break through to the Heavenly Core realm, it's best to use a Profound Beast's core. Yi Xian thought to himself, but he still rushed forward. He estimated that the remaining effects of the Great Vigor Pill would most likely end here. But what Emozian said was right. A Profound Beast core could help him break through. All he needed to do was collect more. But this 6 to 7 meter tall green source giant wasn't easy to deal with. With the help of his 8 Desolation Greatsword, Yi Xian helped Emozian block the giant's fist attack. Originally, Emozian didn't have the confidence to fight this giant alone, but with Yi Xian holding it back, he could now attack with all his strength. In less than 10 seconds, the green source giant's speed had obviously decreased, and its left leg had been slapped more than 10 times by Emozian. Chop off its left leg. Right at this moment, Emozian pushed the green source giant away. Then he shouted at Yi Xian. Yi Xian's eyes lit up. He held the 8 Desolation Greatsword and chopped at the giant's leg. Crack! Although he had the help of the Great Vigor Pill, his strength was still not enough, and he only managed to chop off half of the leg. But the 8 Desolation Greatsword still had a second attack. Buzz! The 8 Desolation Greatsword suddenly exploded, and the leg was directly blown off by him. After losing a leg, the green source giant's threat was reduced by at least half. If it wanted to move, it could only use its hands. Meat Tank, you're already missing a leg. Let's see how you're going to continue reloading. Yi Xian sneered in his heart. As long as the green source giant tried to get up, he would chop it down with his sword. As for Emozian, he jumped onto the green source giant's body and continuously attacked. In less than half a minute, the green source giant was beaten to death. It's dead. Yi Xian blinked and said, Sect Master Emo, how do we take out the Xian Beast's inner core? Keep it first, we'll talk about it when we get back. Emozian replied. Then I'll help you. Give me the corpse, and I'll give you the Xian Beast's inner core. Yi Xian took a big step forward and directly kept the corpse. Then he used the Devour space to devour the corpse. After that, only the Xian Beast's inner core was left. Then he took out the Xian Beast's inner core and threw it to Emozian with a smile. Sect Master Emo, from the looks of it, you don't seem to be able to do it. Do you still want to continue? If the two of us work together, we can destroy them. However, I've used up a lot of my Dan essence, so I need to recover for a while. Emozian said with a pale face. I have a pill that can quickly recover Dan essence. Sect Master Mo and I will work together, and we'll split the loot 50-50. What do you think? Yi Xian said directly. Pill. Emozian narrowed his eyes. He knew that Yi Xian was not only a weapon refiner, but also a pill refiner. He immediately became interested in his pills. Yi Xian did not say anything and threw 10 pills over. All of them were divine pills that could instantly recover Dan essence. Emozian ate one pill and found that it directly recovered 10% of his Dan essence. If he ate 10 pills, then he would recover all of his Dan essence. Okay, 50-50. Emozian immediately agreed. He had just seen Yi Xian's abilities. Now that he had these pills, it was not a loss. Following that, Yi Xian leaped high into the air and checked. He discovered that this area had already been cleaned up by them. However, there were still many other areas. After all, they had only killed less than 50 of them. As for the huge rocks that the green source giant exploded, there were probably more than 1,000 of them. Right at this moment, a figure suddenly rushed in. Grand Elder, you're here too. Emozian was slightly stunned when he saw the person. I saw you being chased by a big guy just now, so I came to help. I didn't expect that the two of you would deal with it yourselves. Tianlang said helplessly. Grand Elder, how is the evacuation of the others? Emozian asked again. Tianlang sighed. Most of the survivors have been sent out. If there are still people who haven't left, they should be corpses. Let's not talk about this first. That green source giant did not seem to be affected. Chapter 274. That's right, if we can get so many inner cores, the Heavenly Yuan sect will definitely be stronger than before. But I'm afraid there might be some Heavenly Core inner cores. Emozian nodded his head. With their current strength, it was already difficult for them to deal with a late Earth Core warrior, let alone a Heavenly Core warrior. Tianlang said, Don't worry, we can find Zhou Yan and Lin Shi. With the four of us working together, We should be able to fight a heavenly core warrior. When Yixian heard this, he felt a little helpless. For people, did they exclude him? But before they met a heavenly core warrior, he could still do something. So, the three of them decided to work together and split the loot. Yixian would get 30%, and the Heavenly Yuan sect would get 70%. Of course, this was how the late Earth Core warriors would split the loot. As for the initial Earth Core warriors and below, they would split the loot. Soon, Soaring Heaven Mansion's Supreme Elder and sect leader Zhou Yan escorted all the survivors out of the cave and came back. The five of them worked together, and they were very efficient. In less than half an hour, they had cleaned up the entire area and split the loot equally. Yixian got quite a lot of loot as well. After deducting the expenses, they had earned 10 Devour crystals, and most of them were from pills and corpses. In the past half an hour, they had also killed a dozen late Earth Core warriors. It was a pretty good loot. If they gave all these inner cores to a single person, they would definitely be able to break through to the Heavenly Core realm. But too bad, they had all been divided up. If we can clean up the rest of the inner cores, all four of us might be able to break through to the Heavenly Core realm. All four of them had the same thought in their minds. Yixian had the same thought, but he was thinking about breaking through to the Earth Core realm. However, they did not dare to continue. The reason for that was because the green source giant suddenly let out a roar. Boom! This roar shook the entire area. After that, Yixian and the other four men saw huge rocks erupt one after another. It's the third eruption, be careful. Zhou Yan immediately shouted. No, this is not an ordinary eruption, I think it's a Heavenly Core warrior. Let's go, let's go. Heavenly Core realm. Hearing this, everyone immediately turned around, not daring to mess with them. This chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Although there were only a few dozen boulders this time, these boulders were much bigger than the previous ones. They were definitely Heavenly Core profound beasts, and if they were surrounded by them, even the five of them wouldn't be able to escape death. Fortunately, the power of this explosion was not very strong, and it only landed near the green source giant. When it landed, it was still 3,000 to 4,000 meters away from Yixian and the others. Yixian leaped high into the air. Looking at the green source giants that were over 10 meters tall, he revealed a fearful expression. He calculated for a moment and found out that there were more than 30 Heavenly Core warriors coming out, and all of them were Heavenly Core warriors. Thus, they could no longer continue to clean up. No, we can't go in anymore. If we are targeted by two at the same time, things will be troublesome. Yi Tianlong's forehead was covered in cold sweat. What a pity, what a pity. Emoziun shook his head. Just as he finished speaking, the green source giant roared at the sky again. Then the smaller green source giant started to move out. Not good, let's go. Zhou Yan's expression changed, and he immediately turned around and left. They couldn't stay in this place any longer. This time they retreated to a distance of 10,000 meters away, and regrouped with the rest of the group. Right at this moment, on top of a cliff, two sects were doing a head count. 100 men from the Heavenly Yuan sect came, but only 30 were left. As for the Soaring Heaven Mansion, 60 men came, but less than 20 survived. As for the Flying Mounts, many of them were killed, and a few profound beasts were killed as well. Only 20 of them were left. The number of casualties was really high. Rumble. Loud noises kept coming from afar. Everyone turned around, and they saw that the green source giant was finally moving. But it was tearing apart the Heavenly Yuan sect. That green source giant, how did it do it? How can it give birth to so many profound beasts? It must have swallowed that fist-sized celestial blue rock, and that caused it to mutate. If not, how could it become like this? There are already Heavenly Core giants now. Will there be some minor Heavenly Core giants next? If these giants come out, the entire Heavenly Water continent will be in chaos. We can only blame ourselves for being too weak. All we can do is watch our fellow disciples die. This chapter is not finished, please turn the page, die in there. All the surviving disciples were whispering to each other. On the other side, the higher-ups of both sects were having a discussion. The Heavenly Yuan sect has been destroyed, and that green source giant is taking revenge on us. I'm afraid we can't go back. We can only find another place to settle the rest of the disciples. Mo Ziyun shook his head and said, how about this? The Soaring Heaven Mansion can open up a place for all of you to live in. Zhou Yan said generously. Yi Tianlang was overjoyed when he heard this. Thank you, Elder Zhou. The relationship between both sects was very normal, and they didn't have any contact with each other. The reason why Zhou Yan was willing to give up the place was because of Yi Xian. They also knew that Yi Xian and Lin Shuer's ancestors were from the same family, and both of them held important positions in their respective sects. Therefore, unknowingly, both sects had a special relationship. Alright, I'm afraid we can't take back the disciples' corpses. Let's fix them up and plan for the long term. Then the two sects built a temporary camp nearby. However, the atmosphere was very strange. After the green source giant exploded 3 times, it didn't explode again. However, it had already destroyed the entire Heavenly Yuan sect and occupied the mountain as its king. Over at the Heavenly Yuan sect, the atmosphere was foul because of the green source giant. Although the buildings could be rebuilt if they were damaged, the Heavenly Yuan sect still had the formations left behind by their ancestors. These formations were also destroyed by the green source giant. Both sects left some people to guard and prevent the Xian beasts from charging over. As for the others, they rested in their respective camps. Yi Xian took out all the corpses he found in the forest and handed them over to the people in charge of burying them. Then he returned to the cave he set up. Song Suijing was the only one in the cave. When she saw Yi Xian come in, she revealed a strange expression. What's wrong? Why do you have such an expression? Yi Xian asked in surprise. I feel so weak. I can't help at all. Song Suijing frowned. Yi Xian knew that she must be worried about what happened before. He quickly said, Who said that? It's because the enemy is too strong, that's why you feel weak. As he spoke, he walked to Song Suijing's side and took out a few Xian beasts' cores. He said, These Xian beasts' cores are all yours. As long as you refine these cores, you will be able to break through to the initial Earth Core realm. At that time, you will be stronger than me. End of chapter. Chapter 275. But it took you so much effort to get these. Why are you giving them all to me? Song Suijing quickly pushed the inner cores back to him. Yi Xian let out an indifferent laugh and said, The amount of inner cores in my storage ring is more than you can imagine. Not only that, I've also prepared a set for your brother. He then took out another set of inner cores. If these inner cores were sold, they would definitely fetch a sky-high price. Really? Song Suijing still couldn't believe it. Yi Xian helplessly pinched her cheeks and said, They're just inner cores, I'll go get some more later. Song Suijing was shocked when she heard this. You're going back there again? There's a Heavenly Core warrior there. Don't worry, I'm not going to the Heavenly Yuan sect. I'm going to the Green Serene Land. Now that the Green Source Giant has left, there's nothing there that can threaten me. Yi Xian quickly shook his head. I'm going too. Song Suijing said with a firm expression. Just stay here and refine the profound beast's inner core. This pill is the same as before, it can greatly increase the speed at which you refine the inner core. I'll only be gone for a few days. When I come back, you guys might be able to break through to the Earth Core stage. Yi Xian took out a few more pills. Earth Core realm? After hearing this, Song Suijing's eyes lit up. She was only at the initial Mortal Core realm, and she was still one step away from breaking through to the Earth Core realm. Was it really possible to break through to the Earth Core realm in a few days? Right at this moment, she subconsciously lowered her head and looked around. She realized that all the inner cores were at the Earth Core realm, not a single one was at the Mortal Core realm. Be careful then, I'll wait for you here. Song Suijing thought for a moment. Then she decided not to follow him. Just now, the Supreme Elder said that he might bring everyone back to the Soaring Heaven Mansion first. You guys can go back first, I'll go straight to the Soaring Heaven Mansion later. Yi Xian said. N. Song Suijing nodded her head obediently. Before this, she didn't have much confidence in Yi Xian, but this time she was full of confidence. Yi Xian was probably the only person who could easily kill a small Earth Core Green Source Giant with a cultivation base at the late Mortal Core realm. The two of them quietly waited in the cave for a while. Soon after, the Supreme Elder sent someone over to ask them to return to the Soaring Firmament Mansion. As for Yi Xian, he rode on a rock and headed straight to the Green Serene Land. The Green Source Giant Green Source Giant Green Source Giant. If one were to refine a high-grade one, one's cultivation would advance by leaps and bounds. Note: This chapter is not finished yet. Please turn the page. Although the cultivation obtained through this method wasn't stable, if it was used with the refining pill that Yixian exchanged for, not only would the refining speed be greatly increased, there wouldn't be any side effects. Therefore, this time Yixian wanted to hunt a huge amount of inner cores, then sell them together with the refining pill. The profit would definitely be more than what he could get from consuming the inner cores. However, there were a few competitors for this precious land. 2 Earth Core sect elders from the Soaring Heaven Mansion came. They were the chief weapon craftsman, Elder Hu, and the chief alchemist, Elder Lien. As for the Heavenly Yuan sect, they sent 2 initial Earth Core sect elders. The competition was quite fierce. The 5 of them rode on a rock and headed to the green serene land. They traveled through the night, and it only took them 1 day to arrive. After that, they asked the rock to rest in a safe place. Then they all entered the green serene land. TSK, I can feel it. My efficiency is definitely higher than all 4 of them combined. Yixian sneered. The reason why there were so few divine core warriors in the 4 big regions was because of the lack of profound beasts. Without profound beast cores to help them cultivate, they could only rely on time. If they could obtain a huge amount of profound beast cores, then the Soaring Heaven Mansion would definitely surpass the Heavenly Yuan sect. But Yixian didn't dare be careless. After all, there were still profound Earth Core profound beasts here. 3 o'clock, 600 meters. Yixian closed his eyes and sensed for a moment. Then he immediately dashed out. The slaughter had begun. The green serene land wasn't a big place. Since the 5 of them entered from different directions, it would probably only take them 2 days to kill all the profound beasts here. Yixian's efficiency was extremely fast. In just half a day, he'd already killed over 100 profound beasts and obtained over 100 profound beast inner cores of different ranks. Among them, there were even 7 Earth Core inner cores, 3 of which were at the initial Earth Core stage. In total, there were more than 100 profound beast cores. However, when night fell, Yixian suddenly saw a corpse. It was a human corpse that shocked him. Yixian squinted his eyes and realized that he had seen the corpse before. He immediately murmured in shock. Isn't this the Grand Elder of the Heavenly Yuan sect? How did he die here? He subconsciously checked the surroundings, and after confirming that there weren't any living things around, he walked over to the corpse. The corpse was indeed the Grand Elder of the Heavenly Yuan sect. The Grand Elder of the Heavenly Yuan sect was an initial Earth Core realm expert. With the addition of a mid-Earth Core realm profound beast that he bought from Yixian, he should have been able to fight against a profound Earth Core profound beast. Yet he had died there. Yixian carefully checked the corpse and found that the Grand Elder had a lifeless expression when he died. There were no wounds on his body, so he didn't know how he died. The yin and yang ring and the mid-earth tool are still here. Looks like it wasn't done by someone. What could have killed him? Yixian was extremely surprised. He immediately put away the yin and yang ring and the mid-earth tool. However, just as he was about to put the corpse away, he was shocked to find that the corpse couldn't be put into the yin and yang ring. Why was that? Yixian was very surprised. The devouring system couldn't store corpses, but the yin and yang ring could. However, in the next moment he knew why. There seemed to be something swimming in the corpse's stomach. At this moment the thing suddenly swam to the corpse's throat, then suddenly jumped out. Not good. Yixian reacted. He quickly disassembled the 8 desolate sword and condensed it into an 8 desolate shield, blocking in front of him. Bang! Something hit the 8 desolate shield, but it was blocked by the shield. Yixian couldn't see it. His eyes flashed, and as soon as his voice rang out, a surge of Dan essence gushed out. I don't care what you are. I'll cut you into 8 pieces first. 8 desolate wind formation. In an instant the shield was torn to pieces, and began to move in a complicated pattern. However, as the 8 sharp blades were moving at high speed, Yixian saw a green light flash into the bushes. Trying to run? Yixian took out his mid-earth tool bow, and shot a fire dragon arrow in that direction. The extremely high temperature instantly burned the trees in the way to ashes. However, the thing still managed to escape. What is that thing? How can it be so fast? Yixian revealed an expression of shock. Even his eyes couldn't see what that thing was. Moreover, he could sense it when it was moving, but he couldn't sense it after it entered the bushes. This meant that it was still around. End of chapter. Chapter 276. What the hell is this thing? How could it drill into my throat? Luckily I have the 8 desolate shield, or else my internal organs would have been eaten by it. Thinking about this, Yixian subconsciously swallowed his saliva. He quickly raised his hand and shot out a fire dragon arrow, burning the surrounding area and forcing the thing to reveal its true form. However, just as he raised his hand and shot out the third arrow, a green light appeared. It's finally out. I'll keep my mouth shut. Let's see how you're going to get in. Yixian thought to himself and once again used the 8 desolate wind formation. At the same time, he raised the longbow in his hand and shot towards the sky. Rain of arrows. Countless starlights shot out and pierced through the surrounding trees. The green light was frightened and quickly fled into the distance. Yixian caught sight of its figure and his eyes flickered. Mid-rank Earth Realm martial art. Soul-breaking arrow. Swoosh! The arrow pierced through the sky, but it didn't hit the thing. Such fast speed, it has already surpassed me. Yixian was shocked once again. His speed was already considered fast. Even a small Earth Core warrior wouldn't be able to catch up with him. But this thing was even faster than Yixian. It should be at the peak of the Earth Core realm. This thing looks like a small snake, but it's much faster than me. I'll give up. Although the profound core of a profound beast at the late Earth Core realm was very precious and could allow a martial artist who had just entered the Earth Core realm to break through to the initial Earth Core realm, this little snake wasn't even afraid of the 8 desolate wind-killing array. Yixian wasn't confident in killing it. If it accidentally entered his stomach, it would be troublesome. It was fine if his heart was eaten, but what if his kidney was eaten? How was he going to play then? Therefore, Yixian decided to be a coward this time. After putting away the corpse of the great elder of the heavenly Yuan sect, Yixian directly left in the opposite direction. After that, he found a place and emptied the great elder's storage ring into his devouring space. Not bad, not bad. The wealth of a small Earth Core warrior is indeed not bad. Yixian was grinning from ear to ear. Not counting the Niden, he had about 1 trillion devouring points, which was equivalent to 1 devouring crystal. He carefully calculated. There were 33 mortal core inner cores, 3 early Earth Core inner cores, and 2 initial Earth Core inner cores. In total, there were about 5 devour crystals. Next, he began to kill again. However, he did not dare to be careless now. If he was not careful, his kidneys could be eaten. The green land at night is not dark, and many plants will emit a faint light. The green light that stretched as far as the eye could see allowed those green-skinned Xian beasts to hide very well within it. However, Yixian could easily find these mystical beasts with the help of his bloodline. Right at this moment, hiss! A faint sound entered Yixian's ears. It wasn't the sound of the grass rustling in the wind, but something moving on the ground. It's that damn thing. Yixian immediately sensed it. It was that little snake. But this time the situation was a bit special. The little snake had just drilled into a person's mouth. Who is it? Yixian's heart trembled. Right now, besides him, there were only 3 people left in the green land. He wondered who this dead person was. Yixian stood a few hundred meters away. He took out a mid-rank Earth-tier bow and arrows and waited. The figure a few hundred meters away was crazily twitching. In the end, it fell limp on the ground, dead. Since he's dead, then I'll offend you. Yixian's eyes lit up. He quickly drew his bow and shot a few soul-breaking arrows. Swoosh! The soul-breaking arrows pierced through the air and hit the corpse. Did I hit it? Yixian frowned. He shot a few more arrows just in case. A total of 7 arrows, all of which hit the corpse's stomach. After that, Yixian did not sense anything coming out of the corpse's mouth. Then he rushed over to the corpse. The corpse was none other than Elder Hu, the chief weapon craftsman of Soaring Heaven Mansion. However, Elder Hu's corpse was already riddled with holes. The soul-breaking arrows had pierced through 7 times. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to whip the corpse. Yixian mourned for 2 seconds in his heart. Then he quietly walked over. At this moment, a ball of green light suddenly shot out of the green-bearded elder's stomach and headed straight for Yixian. He's not dead yet? Yixian's expression turned solemn. He suddenly disassembled the 8 desolate sword. 8 desolate shield. Clang! The 8 desolate shield formed in an instant. Coincidentally, it happened to clamp the little snake's head. Yixian did not care about anything else. He immediately raised his hand and shot a soul-breaking arrow. This chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Whoosh! A cold light flashed and shot into the small head in the middle of the 8 desolate shield. Clang! The 8 desolate shield opened up and the little snake's corpse fell to the ground. At this moment, Yixian finally saw the little snake's appearance. This little snake was no different from an ordinary snake. It was green all over, and there was a circle symbol on its head. Such an ordinary little snake. How could it be so fast? What is it? Yixian squatted down and placed his hand on the dead snake's body. He muttered in his heart, "Devour." However, in the next moment, he heard a system notification that was different from the others. It was a system notification that he had never heard before. Ding! The host has devoured a devouring beast's corpse. The reward is 1 advancement point. What? Yixian was surprised. He immersed his consciousness into the devouring system. At this moment, other than the devouring crystals and devouring points, there was an additional advancement point in the devouring system. Just as he was wondering what the advancement point was for, another notification sounded. Ding! Activating the high-grade bloodline advancement system. Yixian's eyes flashed. High-grade bloodline advancement system? He quickly checked the high-grade bloodlines that he had fused with and realized that there were many more branches. Thousand Beast bloodline can be advanced. Advancement Path 1 Strength. Current advancement is 0. Every advancement will increase the strength of both hands by 10%. Advancement Path 2 Agility. Current advancement is 0. Every advancement will increase the speed of movement by 10%. Thunderbolt Leopard bloodline can be advanced. Advancement Path 1 Agility. Current advancement is 0. Every advancement will increase the speed of movement by 10%. Advancement Path 2 Jumping Power. Current advancement is 0. Every advancement will increase the speed of movement by 10%. Thousand Flower bloodline can be advanced. Advancement Path 1 Recovery Speed. Current advancement is 0. Every advancement will increase the speed of recovery by 10%. Advancement Path 2 Detoxification Ability. Current advancement is 0. Every advancement will increase the detoxification ability by 10%. Sword Emperor bloodline can be advanced. Advancement Path 1 Sword Skill Power. Current advancement is 0. Every advancement will increase the power of sword skills by 10%. Advancement Path 2 Perception. Current advancement is 0. Every advancement will increase the perception of sword skills by 10%. Yixian had fused with more than 10 bloodlines. Each bloodline could be advanced. He took a look and realized that this advancement point was too overpowered. Chapter 277. The 10,000 Beasts bloodlines' 2 advancement paths were very useful. One was to increase the strength of his hands, while the other was to increase the speed of his legs. If he obtained 10 advancement points and advanced the 10,000 Beasts bloodline's agility 10 times, wouldn't his speed double? He looked through all the bloodline advancement paths and realized that movement speed was the best choice. Among all the martial arts in the world, only speed was invincible. As long as one's speed was fast enough, one could even stab a person to death with a tree branch. If one's movement speed was fast enough, one could even smash a person's head with a kick. He did not have violent tendencies and strength was not his favorite, so naturally, he would choose movement speed. A 10% increase in movement speed could very well be the difference between victory and defeat in a battle. However, in the next moment, Yixian suddenly thought of another problem. Both the 10,000 Beasts bloodline and the Thunder Leopard bloodline had movement speed advancement paths. Moreover, the 10,000 Beasts bloodline and the Thunder Leopard bloodline were both physique bloodlines. In the future, he could only upgrade one bloodline to the top level. He could only upgrade the second bloodline by exchanging for the top-level bloodline expansion. After the 10,000 Beasts bloodline advanced, it would be the Beast King bloodline. After the Thunder Leopard bloodline advanced, it would be called the Lightning Leopard. The Beast King bloodline had both strength and speed, while the Lightning Leopard bloodline was purely speed with an additional jumping ability. If he chose the Lightning Leopard bloodline, it would definitely be faster than the Beast King bloodline. The problem was, which bloodline should he upgrade to the top level in the future? There would be a difference in speed. Moreover, if he upgraded the 10,000 Beasts bloodline to the Beast King bloodline, would the advancement effect be reset to 0? Would the advancement points disappear or be returned? These two questions made Yixian very conflicted. He stood in place and thought for a while before making a decision. Who cares if it's reset to 0? Let's upgrade the current one first. The Beast King bloodline is yours. At that moment, Yixian chose to upgrade the 10,000 Beasts bloodline speed. Ding! Upgrade successful. The host's movement speed is increased by 10%. After hearing the prompt, Yixian's figure flashed and began to run. Sure enough, my movement speed is increased by 10%. Moreover, there is also an effect when I use martial arts. With this boost, my combat power is at least 30% to 30%. Yixian laughed out loud in his heart as he quickly wandered around the forest, looking extremely pleased. He had already made up his mind. He would first upgrade the 1000 Beasts bloodline to the highest level, as it would enhance his entire physique. He didn't want to save the advancement points for when he had a top-notch bloodline. He wanted to live in the present. As for the Thunder Leopard bloodline, he would have to wait until he could afford a top-notch bloodline expansion. This time Yixian really didn't make a mistake in coming. Not only was there a profit of mystical beast inner cores, there was also an advancement point. That little snake is called the Devouring beast. No wonder it's still as thick as a finger even after eating so many innards. Let me look around and see if there are any more. When he thought of this, Yixian didn't stay any longer and continued to search this piece of green land. He hoped that there would be another 8 or 10 devouring beasts. That way, his strength would increase exponentially. However, encountering a devouring beast was already an extremely difficult matter. He searched the entire green serene land but did not see a second devouring beast. It seemed that the devouring beast that had escaped the first time was the one that he had killed. What a pity, what a pity. I wonder if this devouring beast looks like a little snake or something else. I hope I can meet it again. Yixian helplessly shook his head. While searching for the devouring beast, he had killed many mystical beasts. Although his movement speed had only increased by 10%, his efficiency had increased by a lot. 2 days later, he had almost killed all the mystical beasts in the green serene land. The entire green serene land was quiet, not even the chirping of birds could be heard. All living creatures had been killed. Yixian's harvest was also great. Excluding the Heavenly Yuan Sect's Supreme Elder, and the Soaring Heaven Mansion's Chief Weapon Refiner, Elder Hu, he had over 270 mortal core inner cores. He had 17 inner cores that had just entered the Earth Core realm, 10 initial Earth Core inner cores, and even 2 advanced Earth Core inner cores. Not only that, he had also obtained more than 10 devouring crystals by devouring corpses and natural treasures. He now had a total of 35 devouring crystals, and this didn't include the other 2 mystical beast cores. He estimated that if he could devour all the mystical beast cores, he wouldn't be too far away from breaking through to the Earth Core realm. Right now, he was rushing towards Soaring Heaven's location. Before he arrived, the Heavenly Yuan Sect's Supreme Elder and the Soaring Heaven Mansion's Chief Alchemist, Elder Lian, had arrived. Yixian, you're finally here. When Elder Lian saw Yixian, he couldn't help but say, Elder Lian. Yixian greeted respectfully. When he was still in the green serene land, he had met Elder Lian and told him about Elder Hu's death. That was why Elder Lian already knew about it. As for the Heavenly Yuan Sect's Great Elder, he also told him the truth. That Great Elder's corpse was handed over to the Heavenly Yuan Sect's Enforcement Elder, the old man next to Elder Hu. Sigh, I didn't expect the Great Elder to die so miserably. His stomach was emptied. The Heavenly Yuan Sect's Enforcement Elder shook his head and kept the corpse. Other than the corpse, Yixian also took the Heavenly Yuan Sect's Great Elder's belongings, including the mystical beast cores. He didn't lack these crystals now. Senior, please restrain your grief. Yixian said calmly. On the path of martial arts, life and death are up to fate. Sigh. The Enforcement Elder sighed again. Elder Lian was also a little sad because Elder Hu was his good friend. The two of them had joined the Soaring Heaven Mansion together for a few decades. Who would have thought that Elder Hu would die here? Elder Lian quickly recovered. After all, he was used to seeing big waves. He turned his head and asked, Forget it, let's not talk about this anymore. Yixian, how's your harvest? Hearing this question, Yixian only smiled and didn't say anything. When Elder Lien and the enforcement elder of the heavenly Yuan sect saw his smile, they immediately understood that Yixian's harvest had reached a level that they didn't dare to imagine. The enforcement elder sighed again and again. It was really like the Yangtze River pushing the waves ahead. Each wave was stronger than the previous one. Right, what was the Yangtze River? Now that the three of them had arrived, they directly rode on the Soaring Heaven Rock and rushed back to the Soaring Heaven Mansion. Taking advantage of the opportunity to go back, the two elders also started to refine their mystical beast cores. One of them was at the initial Earth Core realm, while the other had just entered the Earth Core realm. Their cultivation was already on the verge of a breakthrough. As long as they refined the corresponding mystical beast cores, they might be able to break through. 10 days later, they also returned to the Soaring Heaven Mansion. At this time, the Soaring Heaven Mansion had already opened up an area near the heavenly abode for the disciples of the heavenly Yuan sect to live and cultivate. Chapter 278. After Yixian returned to his residence, he found that Song Suijing wasn't there. So he went to the firmament peak to find the Supreme Elder. "You're back. How was the harvest this time?" Zhou Yin couldn't help but ask. "Not bad, but Elder Hu is dead, and I have handed his body to Elder Lien." Yixian sighed. Zhou Yin showed a sad expression when he heard this, but he quickly recovered and said, "Alas, life and death have their own destiny. Supreme Elder, where is Suijing?" Yixian asked again. He had been away for more than half a month, so he didn't know how Song Suijing was refining the inner core. Zhou Yin paused. This made Yixian's heart tremble. Could it be that something happened? "Don't worry, she's fine. She just entered a very strange state with Judge. Come with me." Zhou Yin stood up. A very strange state? Yixian frowned slightly when he heard this. What kind of strange state? He followed Zhou Yin and finally arrived in front of a cultivation room. Then Zhou Yin quietly opened the door and walked in. Yixian followed in and found that Song Suijing and Judge Song were sitting cross-legged on two stone chairs with their eyes closed. To his horror, Song Suijing's body was covered with a layer of ice crystals that emitted frost from time to time. As for Judge Song, his whole body was red and sweaty. As soon as he entered, he felt two different auras. "Supreme Elder, this is?" Yixian turned his head and asked. After they came back, they went into seclusion and then this happened. This is already the third day, and in these 3 days they haven't woken up even once. Supreme Elder shook his head helplessly. "I have lived for decades, and this is the first time I have seen such a situation. When you came to see once, and he said that the two have a special physique called the Yin-Yang twin physique." Supreme Elder? Yin and Yang twin body? Yixian was stunned for a moment before asking, "What is this?" Scripture cutting is Yin and judgment is Yang. As long as two people cultivate together, they will enter this special state, and their cultivation speed will increase. Their speed would be 10 times or even 100 times higher than normal people's. They didn't have this kind of situation before, so I guess it should be the cultivation technique I passed on to them that activated this bloodline. The Grand Elder replied. After Yixian heard this, he suddenly remembered that other than him, ordinary people could also possess bloodlines. There were 2 types of bloodlines. There was a legend in the heavenly water continent. It was said that some almighty people would condense their lifetime's lost knowledge into a bloodline seed before passing it on to others. As long as that person successfully refined the bloodline seed, they would be able to obtain the divine ability of that almighty being. Under normal circumstances, it would be a martial art. As for the other type of bloodline, it would randomly appear in a person's body. Some people were born with divine strength, some were immune to poison, and some were not afraid of the cold. These were all bloodlines, and some people's perception of the sword was far superior. Without a doubt, Judge Song and Song Suijing belong to the second type of bloodline. Then this bloodline won't be harmful? Yixian couldn't help but ask. When you said that this yin-yang twin physique is very rare, it usually appears between siblings. This was mentioned in a book left by your father. The Grand Elder explained. My father? Yixian was startled, but he immediately understood that it should be Yi Chong who gave it to Lin Wenyue. So you don't have to worry. Take a look again. What is their current realm? The Grand Elder suddenly said. Hearing this, Yixian carefully sensed and was shocked to find that Song Suijing and Judge Song were already in the Earth Core realm. Heavens, even with the help of the refined pill, they shouldn't be able to break through to the Earth core realm so quickly. Yixian was shocked. He was just casually saying this. Back then, Song Suijing spent an entire day to break through from the half-step origin core realm to the divine core realm. But that was only the inner core of a profound beast that had just broken through to the mortal core realm. The inner cores he gave Song Suijing before he left were all inner cores of profound beasts at the Earth core realm. Inner cores of profound beasts at the Earth core realm and the yin-yang twin physique allowed them to break through to the Earth core realm. Perhaps when they wake up, they will have broken through to the late Earth core realm. The Grand Elder nodded his head in satisfaction. Late Earth core realm, which was his current realm. Is that so? Yixian was also quietly watching them. The Grand Elder's physique was indeed not bad. If this continued, Song Suijing and Judge Song might be able to break through to the next realm faster than him. Alright, let's not stay here, let's talk outside. The Grand Elder closed the door behind him and left with Yixian. Seeing that not only was Song Suijing fine, but he had also received a great fortune, Yixian was in a good mood. After that, the Grand Elder brought Yixian to the courtyard and sat down. Tell me, how much did you get this time? The Grand Elder asked in a somewhat impatient manner. Yixian hesitated for a moment, then he said, Inner cores of profound beasts at the mortal core realm. A total of 270. This is more than enough for all the disciples in the sect. What? 270? Are you sure? When the Grand Elder heard the number, he immediately stood up and shouted out in surprise. If you want to know clearly, it's 160 inner cores at the early mortal core realm, 79 inner cores at the early mortal core realm, and 31 inner cores at the late mortal core realm. Yixian continued. This time the Grand Elder was convinced. Although Yixian's cultivation level wasn't high, his strength was so strong that it shocked the Grand Elder. There are only about 20 divine core warriors in the Soaring Heaven Mansion right now. Wait, these are just mortal core warriors, how many earth core warriors do you have? The Supreme Elder suddenly remembered something halfway through his sentence. 17 inner cores at the early mortal core realm, 10 inner cores at the early mortal core realm, and 2 inner cores at the late mortal core realm. Yixian answered honestly. Originally, he wanted to leave some for Song Suijing, but it seemed like he didn't need to anymore. Perhaps when Song Suijing woke up, she would already be at the mid-mortal core realm. So many. The Grand Elder was shocked once again. Just now, when the 5 of them cleaned up an area, the total amount of inner cores they got was less than what Yixian got. Grand Elder Lien, will hand over 3/4 of the inner cores to the Soaring Heaven Mansion. That should be enough, right? Yixian suddenly raised his eyebrows at the Grand Elder. The Grand Elder's face darkened. You little rascal, name a price. Grand Elder, these inner cores are not a small amount. Yixian continued. Stop talking nonsense, just name a price, we don't lack money right now. The Grand Elder said in a domineering manner. What the Grand Elder said shocked Yixian. So many inner cores, could the Soaring Heaven Mansion really handle all of them? End of chapter. Chapter 279. Just a single great success Earth Core Inner Core would allow Yixian to obtain 8 Devour crystals. If it was exchanged for crystal stones, then it would be equivalent to 80,000 high-grade crystal stones, which was equivalent to 100 mid-grade earth artifacts. Wait, the First Elder came to read the scripture of judgment before, which means that she has already walked out. Could it be that Father left behind a lot of good things when he came to visit her? Yixian suddenly had this thought, but he didn't think too much about it. Since the Grand Supreme Elder had said so, then he would do as he pleased. Alright, then I'll tell you. Yixian thought for a while, then he said, 100,000 high-rank Earth Core Realm for 1 profound Earth Core Realm, 30,000 for small-rank Earth Core Realm, and 5,000 for initial rank Earth Core Realm. 2,000 profound Mortal Core Warriors, 300 initial Mortal Core Warriors, and those at the initial Mortal Core Realm. Those who have just broken through to the Mortal Core Realm will be given away for free. The Supreme Elder's face darkened. In his mind, he thought that Yixian was really asking for too much. Okay, I'll give it to you for free. Yixian generously nodded in agreement and said, Do you want to trade now? Wait for me for a moment. The Supreme Elder said and left. Looking at the direction he left in, Yixian's guess was confirmed. The Grand Elder was probably going to look for the First Elder Lin Wenyue. It seems that father still has some feelings for the great elder. He left behind a lot of good things. But why didn't he take them out earlier and go to the central state to buy some weapons and martial arts? Yixian was very puzzled. 8 years ago, when Yichong left the Profound Sun Empire, he was already at the spirit stage 4. Thus, when he came to the Soaring Heaven Mansion, it was naturally the same. For a divine core warrior, these inner cores were extremely precious. But for Yichong, who had a 4th realm divine soul, these inner cores were just a drop in the ocean. Great Elder has been in seclusion for more than 10 years. It should be because he doesn't want to break the balance between the 4 regions. Wait, seclusion. Thinking of this, Yixian's eyes suddenly widened. Perhaps the Great Sect Elder has already broken through to the Heavenly Core Realm or the 4th stage of the Spirit Realm. Yixian murmured in his mind. Then he remembered something else. Previously, when he was heading to the Green Serene Land, he had given the Great Elder a mid-grade earthly artifact. At that time, the Great Elder had been very confident. He was not afraid that the people from the Sky Yuan sect would attack them after obtaining the mid-grade earthly artifact. Now that he thought about it, the Great Elder must have been following him in secret. I see. Of course, it was also possible that the First Elder didn't think highly of him. Very soon the Supreme Elder returned. Yixian had already calculated that it would be around 670,000 top-grade crystals, and this was excluding the 700 top-grade crystals. Waha! I've absorbed more than 100 crystals. This is great. The moment Yixian received the crystal, he felt as if he was going to heaven. 670,000 crystals. If he absorbed all of them, he would have 67 Devour crystals. Including the 35 Devour crystals he already had, he now had 102 Devour crystals. Right now, he had enough money to level up his physique bloodline, combat bloodline, and support bloodline to the highest level. But his realm was still far from enough. What about the pill that can increase the refinement speed of a core by 100 times? The Supreme Elder asked curiously. That's another one. Yixian said with a cunning smile. This was a great opportunity to extort money, how could he miss it? You black-hearted brat, name a price. The Supreme Elder scolded angrily. 500 crystals for one. Yixian said casually. The refined pill that could increase the refinement speed of a core by 100 times only required 5 billion Devour points. However, 500 crystals were equivalent to 50 billion Devour points. To put it simply, the price had increased by 10 times. You brat! The Supreme Elder scolded again and said, 1,000 crystals. Yixian was almost scared to death when he heard that. 1,000 crystals? Luckily, he had enough Devour points. Otherwise, he would have lost face. He spent 5 Devour crystals in exchange for 1,000 refining pills. TSK, 5 Devour crystals increased by 10 times. Now it's 50 crystals. This is great. Yixian accepted the top-grade crystals. At this moment, he already had more than 1 million top-grade crystals in his devouring space. All in all, he had 147 Devour crystals. These were enough for him to break through to the Earth Core realm. With these, the overall strength of the Soaring Heaven Mansion will increase by 2 or 3 levels. We won't be any weaker than the main city in the central province. The Supreme Elder mumbled. Oh right, Supreme Elder. I'm sure you still have a lot of crystals. Can you lend me some? Yixian smiled cunningly. The Supreme Elder frowned. You already have so many crystals. It's enough to buy the 4 regions. You won't be able to spend them all. Why do you still need crystals? How many do you need? 3,000. Oh, 30 million. Yixian smiled. Get lost. Yixian was chased out by Zhou Yan. The former was puzzled. It was his father's money. Why did he have to take it back? Forget it. These crystals are enough for me to break through to the Earth Core realm. Let's go back first. Yixian shook his head. He then left the Soaring Heaven Peak and returned to his residence. Then he started to devour the crystals bit by bit. When the number of crystals in the devour space was close to 100, he finally heard the system notification. Ding! Host has broken through to the Earth Core realm. Ding! Unlocked high-grade Earth Tool Exchange. Ding! Unlocked high-grade Earth Level Martial Art Exchange. Ding! Unlocked 3rd grade Heaven Tool Forging. Yixian was overjoyed. He could finally buy a high-grade earth tool. This meant that he could earn some top-grade crystals again. He quickly checked and found that a high-grade earth tool required 5 Devour crystals. It was extremely expensive. He then looked at the 3rd grade Heaven tool. Sure enough, the material required was celestial bluestone. Moreover, the blueprint was not something he could buy now. However, in the next moment he was dumbfounded. Because there was no better Heaven tool than a high-grade earth tool. In other words, he had to forge it himself. In addition, there was no Heaven-level martial art exchange. After hearing this news, Yixian almost cried. He heard that the materials for Heaven tools were extremely rare and difficult to gather. This meant that it would be difficult for him to forge them in batches in the future. Moreover, there was no Heaven-level martial art exchange. This meant that he had to obtain it himself and use his Devour points to learn it. Forget it. I'll ask the Supreme Elder tomorrow if he wants a high-grade earth tool. As Yixian thought about it, he fell head first onto the bed. He hadn't closed his eyes for the past few days and was tired. End of chapter. Chapter 280. The next day, Yixian woke up early in the morning and went to Soaring Firmament Peak once again. Sure enough, Song Suijing and Judge Song were still in their secluded cultivation, and they were still in that strange state. But their core energies were much denser than before, and their cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds. Feeling helpless, Yixian had no choice but to look for the Grand Supreme Elder. Within a mansion. Why are you here again? When the Grand Supreme Elder saw Yixian, he asked in surprise. Sure enough, there is something good for you, Yixian laughed and said. I wonder if Grand Supreme Elder is interested in a high-ranked earth item? What? A high-ranked earth item? The Grand Supreme Elder felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. He immediately stood up and cried out in surprise. That's right, a high-ranked earth item. I know Grand Supreme Elder doesn't have the materials to craft it, but I found some when I was in Huoyang's cave, and since I had a breakthrough in my forging technique, I was able to craft a few high-ranked earth items. I wonder if Grand Supreme Elder wants them? Yixian nodded his head. The Grand Supreme Elder was shocked. Yes, of course I want them. Although the Soaring Firmament Mansion is focusing on construction, our overall strength is still not as strong as those main cities in the central province. How about this? I'll give this high-ranked earth item to Grand Supreme Elder for 100,000 high-ranked crystal stones. Yixian spent 5 Devour crystals and exchanged them for a high-ranked earth item. The Grand Supreme Elder received the item and gave it a look. Sure enough, the boost to his core energy was much greater than a mid-ranked earth item. With this high-ranked earth item, he was confident that he could fight a heavenly core warrior. You really are as monstrous as your father. You can actually craft a high-ranked earth item. You know, there aren't many people in the entire central province who can craft one. Without saying anything, the Grand Supreme Elder took out 100,000 high-ranked crystal stones. Do you want more? Yixian continued to ask. The Heavenly Yuan sect doesn't have enough resources, but if you want to exchange them with your core, you should be able to afford one. Can you give me 2 more? The Grand Supreme Elder replied. No problem. Yixian exchanged for 2 more, earning another 200,000 top-grade crystals. 15 Devour crystals were exchanged for 300,000 top-grade crystals. After devouring them, not only did his cultivation base increase significantly, but he also obtained an additional 15 Devour crystals. This method of earning money made Yixian extremely satisfied. By the way, don't spread the fact that you can forge high-grade earth-grade artifacts, especially in the Central Plains. The high-grade earthly tool blacksmith over there has already been decided. If you appear out of nowhere, you'll definitely cause a lot of trouble. After the transaction was completed, the Supreme Elder also reminded them. Yixian was a little surprised. Grand Supreme Elder, you knew I was going to Central State? Previously, he had already made up his mind to go to the Central Continent. After all, it would be difficult for him to improve much if he stayed in the Eastern region. Unless he could get his hands on the Celestial Blue Rock, but that Celestial Blue Rock had been devoured by the Green Source Giant, and he still had dozens of Heavenly Core Little Giants under his command. It was impossible for him to get his hands on it for now. Therefore, he had no choice but to go to the Central State. The Supreme Elder was startled for a moment, then he said, Since you want to go, that's great. I have a mission for you in the central state. Yixian's face darkened. He suddenly had a bad premonition. The Heavenly Yuan sect has been destroyed, and Sect Chief Mo had a discussion with me last night. If we want to take back the Heavenly Yuan sect, it's impossible for us two sects to do it alone. Therefore, I want you to go to the central state and ask for help. The Supreme Elder said slowly. Ask for help? Who? The founder of the Divine Lands Alliance, Zhang Miao, is in the central state right now. He knows many people. I hope you can bring the news of the Green Source Giant and the Celestial Blue Rock to him. Ask all the powerful warriors in the central state to come here and eliminate the Green Source Giant. We've already discussed this, and the Celestial Blue Rock is not something we can devour. Therefore, our target is those heavenly core Xian beasts. The Supreme Elder explained the plan. After listening to the plan, Yixian immediately understood what was going on. The Soaring Heaven Mansion and the Heavenly Yuan sect were going to ask those powers in the central state to lead the way and attract the Green Source Giant's attention. After that, they would work together and kill the Heavenly Core Giant. All right, I'll bring the news to them. Yixian nodded his head. It was just bringing the news. It was simple and easy. Perhaps when he returned, he would be able to kill those Heavenly Core Xian beasts. Oh right, one more thing. Sect Chief Mo's eldest disciple is in the central state as well. Therefore, this time Lin Shuer will be traveling with you. You can take care of each other if you travel together. The Supreme Elder added. Yixian was startled for a moment, then he refused. That's too troublesome. I can travel faster by myself. Lin Shuer is at the critical moment of her breakthrough. You can leave after she breaks through. It will take at most 10 days. The Supreme Elder didn't give Yixian any chance to refuse. He stood up and left. Yixian felt a little helpless, but when he looked at the direction where the Supreme Elder left, he thought to himself, he's going to look for the Great Elder again. Could it be that the Great Elder is helping me absorb those Xian beasts' inner cores? It looked like the Soaring Heaven Mansion was going to have 2 more Heavenly Core warriors joining their ranks. 10 days Yixian could afford to wait, and he could also wait for Song Suijing. Perhaps she would come out in a few days, and at that time they could go to the central state together. During these 10 days, the Soaring Heaven Mansion had returned to normal. On the 6th day, Yixian found out that Lin Shuer had broken through to the initial Earth Core realm. On the 8th day, the Soaring Heaven Mansion's Sect Chief Lin Shi had broken through to the Heavenly Core realm. But on the 10th day, Song Suijing still hadn't come out from her closed-door cultivation. Without any other choice, Yixian had no choice but to accept his fate. Right at this moment, a Heavenly Yuan sect's Heavenly Thunderhawk was parked in front of the Heavenly Abode's entrance. On top of this Heavenly Thunderhawk stood a white figure. It was Lin Shuer. When Yixian approached, Lin Shuer couldn't help but ask, "You could have gone first. Why did you wait for me?" Yixian walked over and coldly harumphed. "If it wasn't because your master asked me to, I would have left long ago. 10 days is more than enough for me to make a round trip." Lin Shuer instinctively sensed Yixian's cultivation base, and her expression changed when she found out that he was only at the initial mortal core realm. Her expression changed. She knew that Yixian had obtained a huge amount of Xian Beast's inner cores, and he knew how to concoct refined pills. During the last battle, Yixian was already at the late mortal core realm, so why was he still at the initial mortal core realm? "What's your current cultivation base?" Lin Shuer couldn't help but ask. "I'm not telling you, let's go." Yixian jumped onto the Heavenly Thunder Hawk. Lin Shuer's heart trembled. She asked, "You've broken through to the Earth Core realm?" "I'm stronger than you, that's all." Yixian sat down straight away. This answer made Lin Shuer even more certain that Yixian had broken through to the Earth Core realm. Before this, Yixian was already stronger than her when they were 2 realms apart. Now, with only 1 realm difference between them, the gap between her and Yixian had widened once again. This made her, the number 1 genius of the Heavenly Yuan sect, feel a huge amount of pressure. But she didn't say anything. She just rode the Heavenly Thunderhawk and flew towards the central province. If you have extra phones, please help me download the entire chapter. This is very important. It's related to Yu Luo's fate. It's related to the writing process. Thank you. End of chapter. Chapter 281. The Tianshui continent could be divided into 5 regions, namely the North, South, East, West, and the Central region. However, The central region's area was comparable to the sum of the 4 regions. During these few days, Yixian went to the central region to study. The central region could also be divided into 7 regions, each controlled by 7 main cities. This time he was going to find the alliance leader of the Divine Prefecture Alliance, Zheng Miao, in a main city called the Divine Prefecture City. It was said that Zheng Miao was originally from the Divine Prefecture City. However, the Divine Prefecture City was a bit far from the Soaring Heaven Mansion. Even with the Heavenly Thunder Eagle, it would still take half a month. Therefore, Yixian had to go to another place first, which was the Grand Senior Brother of the Sky Yuan sect, Guangjin City. This Guangjin City was also a main city. At this time, the Heavenly Thunder Eagle that Yixian and Lin Shuai were riding had already entered the central region. They only needed 2 more days to reach Guangjin City. On the back of the Heavenly Thunder Eagle, Yixian and Lin Shuai were each resting with their eyes closed. In these few days they did not speak a word, and the atmosphere was very awkward. When Yixian was still a good-for-nothing, Lin Shuai chose to break off the engagement, which made Yixian lose face. Although Yixian did not care about this matter, Lin Shuai felt a little sorry for him. She thought, if she did not break off the engagement that day, what kind of scene would it be today? This question made her unable to calm down and cultivate for the past few days. This time, Yixian. Lin Shuai finally could not help but speak. Yixian, who was resting with his eyes closed, also opened his eyes when he heard this. He was a little surprised and said, "What? You went back to Lianyun City before, right?" Lin Shuai asked. "Yes, why?" Yixian nodded. Lin Shuai continued to ask, "How are my father and the others?" "Very good. Speaking of which, you did not go back even once in these 2 years. Isn't that a little too heartless?" Yixian said. "I wanted to, but Master did not let me. I want to go back after a while." "What about you?" Lin Shuai asked. "We'll see when the time comes," Yixian replied casually. With his current realm, it would only take him 3 days to return to the Profound Sun Empire. Lin Shuai didn't ask any more questions and just waited quietly. The atmosphere became very strange again. However, at this moment, a group of black figures suddenly appeared in the distant sky. Yixian seemed to have sensed something and turned his head to look. "A group of spirit beasts?" Yixian muttered. Now, he couldn't even be bothered to attack spirit beasts. Lin Shuai also turned her head to look, but in the next moment, her expression froze as she exclaimed, "Black-winged bird." Hearing this strange tone, Yixian couldn't help but ask, "What's wrong?" "These black-winged birds are Xian beasts. They hate other birds and will attack them on sight," Lin Shuai hurriedly explained. "What?" Yixian's eyes widened. He turned around and realized that there were at least a few hundred black shadows. "Xian beasts? Then why are we still running? Kill them all." Yixian's eyes were filled with killing intent. "No, the Heavenly Thunder Eagle will be killed by them." Lin Shuai turned around and said. "But can you escape?" Yixian asked back. Among the group of black-winged birds behind them, there were late mortal core warriors, and the Heavenly Thunder Eagle below them was only at the early mortal core realm. There was no way it could escape. Lin Shuai was stunned for a moment. Then she ordered the Heavenly Thunder Eagle to land. At the same time, Yixian took out a mid-ranked Earth Tier bow. Mid-ranked Earth Tier martial skill, Fire Dragon Arrow. He shot out a powerful Fire Dragon Arrow from over 1,000 meters away, but only a few black-winged birds were hit. Besides, the group of black-winged birds were very scattered, and they were so far away. After shooting out a few arrows, Yixian only managed to kill 30 of them. Coincidentally, when the group of black-winged birds approached, the Heavenly Thunder Eagle also landed on the ground. But it was frightened by the black-winged birds. After sending Yixian and Lin Shuai down, it began to flee. Not good. Lin Shuai's expression changed. She didn't expect the Heavenly Thunder Eagle to run away. It was simply courting death. Sure enough, the group of black-winged birds immediately split up and chased after the Heavenly Thunder Eagle. As for the rest, they had surrounded Yixian and Lin Shuai. Haha, over 100 Xian beast cores, our luck is really good. After landing on the ground, Yixian couldn't help but laugh out loud. Lin Shuai rolled her eyes. What kind of situation was this? How could he still laugh out loud? At this moment, Yixian suddenly formed a great sword of desolation. When she saw the great sword of desolation, Lin Shuer subconsciously used her Dan energy to protect her ears. Just as she expected, the great sword of desolation was in her ears. In the next moment, Yi Xian jumped high into the air and slashed out with the great sword of desolation. Rumble! An earth-shattering explosion sounded out. In an instant, half of the black wind birds were blown away and fell to the ground. Hunting time. Great wind formation of desolation. Activate. Yi Xian's eyes flickered. The Dan energy in his body instantly decreased by a large amount. At this moment he had already broken through to the earth core realm. The great wind formation of desolation had also increased in range, reaching 50 meters. Furthermore, it had a radius of 50 meters. Looking at the black wind birds being cut into pieces one by one, Lin Shuer was completely dumbfounded. In less than 2 seconds, Yi Xian had killed over 10 black wind birds. 5 seconds later, all of the black wind birds were turned into corpses. The entire area was dyed black with blood. Out of the hundreds of black wind birds, Lin Shuer only managed to kill less than 10. The rest were all killed by Yi Xian. Is this his true strength? Lin Shuer thought to herself. She was thinking if she entered Yi Xian's 50-meter attack range, would she also be cut into pieces like these black wind birds? What are you waiting for? Go and help the heavenly thunder eagles. Yi Xian suddenly shouted out. Lin Shuer immediately reacted and chased after him. As for Yi Xian, he stayed behind and cleaned up the battlefield by himself. The leader of this flock of black wind birds was a late mortal core warrior, but it had already been cut into pieces by Yi Xian. Therefore, Yi Xian wasn't worried about Lin Shuer. He spent some time to devour all of the black wind birds' corpses. As for the beast cores, he put them into his devouring space. Not bad. There is one devouring crystal from the corpses alone. If it is the beast cores, there will be at least 5. Yi Xian nodded his head in satisfaction. Although he had used up all of his Dan energy, the beast cores that could restore his Dan energy weren't expensive. They didn't even cost 10% of the original cost. Therefore, this was a free meal. Right at this moment, he suddenly looked into the distance. He murmured in surprise. That girl has been gone for so long, why isn't she back yet? According to his estimation, Lin Shuer would be able to kill all of these black wind birds in less than a minute. But now, a few minutes had passed, and Lin Shuer still hadn't returned. Just to be safe, he quickly followed her. In front of him was a mountain forest. Right after Yi Xian stepped into the forest, he immediately found Lin Shuer's location. But what made him feel strange was that there were a few other figures beside Lin Shuer. Without hesitation, he immediately rushed over. End of chapter. Chapter 282. What's going on? Yi Xian flew to Lin Shuer's side and asked curiously. At the same time, he glanced at the people around him. In the next moment, his expression changed as well. Early Earth Core Realm. Among the 5 people around them, there was one Early Earth Core Realm warrior. The other 4 had just entered the Early Earth Core Realm. Oh, so you have companions. A young man with a wretched smile said. At the same time, he was also the Early Earth Core Realm warrior among the 5. However, he looked like he was 35 years old, twice as old as Lin Shuer. Lin Shuer ignored him and said to Yi Xian with a serious expression. I was chasing after the black wind bird when they suddenly intercepted me. Little girl, you're wrong. We were resting here, you were the one who barged in, okay? The wretched young man said with a smile. Then why didn't you move aside? Lin Shuer asked back. Why should we? The wretched young man blurted out. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly stepped forward and said, Everyone, just tell me what you want. Brother, you're really straightforward. I feel like old friends with you at first sight. Why don't we sit down and talk about life? The wretched young man said with a smile. After hearing this, Yi Xian immediately understood. What do you mean by feeling like old friends at first sight? He must have taken a fancy to Lin Shuer, right? Lin Shuer wasn't stupid and naturally understood. She immediately said angrily, If you don't want to die, then move aside. Oh, what a temper. The wretched young man coldly snorted. I won't move aside. Little girl, why don't you try? As soon as he finished speaking, the 5 of them took out their weapons at the same time. Some of them were even imagining a certain scene. The middle-aged man among the 5 suddenly said, Big brother, can you give me this brat? Aha, okay, I know you like pretty boys with soft skin. I'll give this brat to you. The wretched young man laughed loudly. Hearing this, Yixian and Lin Shuai shuddered at the same time. The former even subconsciously took a step back. They didn't expect to meet a virgin here, and an old man at that. This was intolerable. So you're saying that you won't move aside? Lin Shuai narrowed her eyes and asked one last time. Little girl, what do you think we want to do now that we've said so much? If you surrender obediently, we will only teach you how to be a woman. Few resist. Before the wretched young man could finish his words, Shuai couldn't help but make a move. A great battle instantly broke out. As for Yixian, he stood quietly to the side. This time, he decided to let Lin Shuai take the spot. TSK. Kid, you're quite sensible. The middle-aged man walked out with a sinister smile. Yixian shivered again. This middle-aged man gave him goosebumps all over his body. If you don't like women, go and like men. Don't mess with me or you'll die a horrible death, Yixian reminded him. Unexpectedly, not only did the middle-aged man not shrink back, he instead took a step forward and said, Fierce enough, I like it. You seem to have refined your body as well. Coincidentally, I do as well. We can. Swish. Poof. A cold light flashed and penetrated the middle-aged man's forehead. Then he fell backwards onto the floor. Blood gushed out from the hole between his eyebrows and he died in an instant. Sorry, I only like women. Yixian shook his head helplessly. On the other side, Shuai had already fought a few rounds with the four men. The former was indeed the #1 genius of the Sky Yuan sect. She was quite strong. But what surprised Yixian was that these people were all Earth Core warriors, and they all had mid-rank Earth tools. It seemed like they were from some big family in the central state. However, this was of no use. Although Shuai was only at the initial Earth Core realm, her strength was still above the wretched young man. Even if she was attacked by 4 people, she could still handle it. Swish. Suddenly a crisp sound was heard. An arm was thrown into the air. It was the arm of one of the 4 men. The 4 men were stunned. One of them looked down and found that his arm was cut off. So strong, that kid's strength is unfathomable. Retreat. The wretched young man knew that he had kicked an iron plate. He immediately shouted, Let's go. Hearing this, the other 3 men also quickly retreated. You want to leave? Shuai quickly chased after them. As for Yixian, he also took the ring from the middle-aged man and followed them. Shuai chased with all her strength. In less than half a minute, she had killed the 3 Earth Core warriors. Moreover, she did not even take the ring. She directly chased after the wretched young man. This chapter does not end. Please turn the page. As a result, those 3 universe rings were cheap for Yixian. However, the wretched young man was very fast. He was even faster than Shuai. In the blink of an eye, the distance between them had increased. Yixian saw that the distance between them had increased, so he followed up and asked, Do you need help? No. Shuai answered firmly. At this moment, the distance between the 2 groups had increased by 200 meters, and it was still increasing. Even if Shuai was given a day, she would not be able to catch up. Are you sure you don't want to help? There seems to be a big city in front of us. If he escapes there, it will be troublesome. Yixian asked again. I want to kill him with my own hands. Shuai still said firmly. That's where you are wrong. If you can't kill him, then let me do it. An initial Earth Core warrior is still very rich. Yixian said as if he was lecturing her. No, I want to kill him with my own hands. Don't do it. Shuai did not care. On the surface, she was very angry, but in reality, she just wanted to prove her strength in front of Yixian. However, Yixian did not know. He helplessly shrugged and said, all right, as you wish. Anyway, he had already obtained 4 rings, so it was not like he did not gain anything. Soon, the wretched young man had fled 1,000 meters away and disappeared from their sight. You still have one more chance. I can help you catch him. In the end, Yixian could not help but ask. No. Shuai still gave the same answer. Yixian also gave up. Shuai had a temper and was willful. He could not do anything about it. All right, for rings. These 3 are yours. Yixian directly threw the spoils of war to her. This time, Shuai did not refuse and kept them. Yixian checked his ring. After seeing the things inside, he could not help but shudder. What the hell was inside? whips, candles, shackles, and even a mold of some organ. That middle-aged man was really good at everything. He was good at both offense and defense. He was truly a god. Yixian hurriedly poured the useful things into the devouring space, then swallowed the entire universe ring. End of chapter. Chapter 283. That person might have escaped to the big city, but that direction doesn't seem to be in the same direction. Do you want to go? Yixian asked again. Let's go, Lin Shuer said solemnly. Yixian didn't mind. After all, he was only here to explore the middle state. He didn't plan to stay here for long. They didn't know where the heavenly thunder eagle had flown to, so the two could only walk to the big city. Lin Shuer's speed was slower, so the two spent more than half a day to reach the big city. Bramble City. Yixian raised his head to take a look, then walked in. However, what they didn't know was that when they entered the city, they were already being watched. After entering the city, they found an inn to stay for the night. Then they went out again. This is the middle state. We're not familiar with this place. How do you want to find that person? After leaving the inn, Yixian couldn't help but ask. Lin Shuer glanced at him and said, There's a force in the middle state. They know everything and are omnipotent. As long as they can afford it, they can do anything. Oh, there's such a force? Yixian was very interested. If they could afford it, would they be able to find someone to assassinate the city lord of the Middle State's #1 city? Then he quietly followed behind Lin Shuer. After a while, they arrived in front of a building. There were only 3 words on the signboard at the entrance. Everything. Lin Shuer took the lead and walked in. Yixian followed closely behind. Immediately, a waiter walked over. He looked at Yixian and said, Is there anything you need? I want to investigate a person. Lin Shuer said directly. Okay, this way please. The waiter directly led the two into a side room, then took out a form for Lin Shuer to fill in. Name, age, gender, appearance, cultivation level, weapon used, martial arts skills. Lin Shuer casually wrote a few words and handed it to the waiter. Unknown name, a man between 30 to 40 years old. Initial Earth Core Realm. Uses a 4-foot-long sword with the word whole carved on it. Looks wretched. Has a middle-aged man friend. Hobbies. The waiter read out the information. After Yixian heard this, he couldn't help but shudder. *CK, why did he even mention that awesome person's information? However, with such confidence, he should be able to lock onto a person. He just didn't know which city that person was in. Please pay 100 top-grade crystals as a deposit first and leave your address. It will take you at most 4 hours to find out where he lives. Then you will pay another 400 top-grade crystals, the attendant replied. Yixian was shocked again. Damn, it actually costs 500 top-grade crystals to investigate a person. That was enough to buy a mid-grade spirit weapon. Lin Shuer was very generous. She took out 100 high-grade crystal stones and handed them over. Then, she told him the name of the inn and the number of the courtyard. Then, the two of them returned to the inn. Shuer, aren't you being a little too generous? You should have just looked for me then. Why do you have to spend 500 top-grade crystal stones to investigate this person now? After returning to the inn, Yixian couldn't help but ask. It's none of your business. I will kill him myself, Lin Shuer replied indifferently. Cough, even if you find him, he is coincidentally in the city. How are you going to kill him? Are you going to kill him in the city? Yixian asked back. Humph. Lin Shuer snorted and didn't say anything. Yixian felt helpless. Why did he feel that the Lin Shuer recently was different from the Lin Shuer in the Heavenly Yuan sect? The waiter from before had said that it would take at most 4 hours to find out the information. 4 hours was equivalent to 4 hours. Therefore, Yixian and Lin Shuer waited in the inn. After about an hour, someone finally came. When Lin Shuer heard the knocking sound, she opened the door. Both of you, I have found the person you are looking for. However, you will have to pay the remaining 400 top-grade crystals first. The person who came was a young man around 25 years old. He had just entered the Earth Core realm and his talent was not bad. Lin Shuer didn't say anything and passed the remaining top-grade crystals to him. Then, the young man passed a sheepskin scroll to him. Kong Rong, the eldest son of the Kong family in Thorn City. Initial Earth Core realm, 33 years old. Kong family is located in the north of Thorn City. The sheepskin scroll was very detailed. It was the information of the wretched young man. I knew it. That person appeared near Thorn City. It is very likely that he is from Thorn City. Man, why don't you go and inquire about the Kong family first? Wasting 500 top-grade crystals for nothing. You still don't have enough experience. Yi Xian said after the horse had left. Lin Shuer rolled her eyes. Indeed, she was too impatient. However, she didn't want Yi Xian to be stronger than her. Forget it. Now that you have found out about that person, what are you going to do next? Sneak into the Kong family? Yi Xian turned around and asked. Yes. Lin Shuer nodded. Yi Xian continued. Then let's go. It's about time. However, at this time Lin Shuer suddenly stopped him. I will go alone. Are you sure? Yi Xian was in disbelief. You stay here. I will settle this myself. Lin Shuer said and left. Yi Xian looked at her leaving figure and muttered. This girl is so stubborn today. Forget it, I will go alone. Otherwise I will be annoyed. He said and went back into the house. However, a few minutes later he came out again. No, Sect Master Amo and Grand Elder asked me to take care of her. If something happens, how am I going to answer to them? Yi Xian thought about it and decided to follow. However, there was another problem. He didn't know where the Kong family was. It was late at night. Although there were many people on the streets, it was easy to alert the enemy. Therefore, he could only go to Wanshi. A place like Wanshi kept their customers' information confidential. Moreover, it was very efficient to find out about the Kong family. Not long after, he came to Wanshi again and spent 100 high-quality crystals to find out where the Kong family was. However, when he arrived at the Kong family, his whole body trembled. He knew that something bad was going to happen. At this time, the Kong family was in an uproar. He could clearly hear someone shouting assassin. This girl's stealth skills are too bad. Don't tell me she didn't even change her clothes? A vein popped out on Yi Xian's forehead. When Lin Shuer was in Lianyun City, she was a well-bred girl. She had always been cultivating in the Lin family and rarely left home. After entering the Heavenly Yuan sect, he would still remain in the Heavenly Yuan sect. At most he would have some management skills, but he would be lacking in other aspects. Yi Xian finally understood why Amo Ziyun asked the Grand Elder to let him come to Zhong Province with Lin Shuer. End of chapter. Chapter 284. Without wasting any time, Yi Xian immediately snuck into the Kong family. With his dark shadow leopard bloodline, even a heavenly core warrior wouldn't be able to find him. Using his tracking ability, he soon found Lin Shuer. Right at this moment, Lin Shuer was surrounded by all the warriors from the Kong family. There were 2 pools of blood on her white dress. She was injured. Little girl, which family are you from? How dare you sneak into the Kong family? You sure have guts. A middle-aged man said with a sneer on his face. Lin Shuer ignored his question and asked directly, where is Kong Rong? Kong Rong? So you're here for him. TSK, I didn't expect Kong Rong to find a good woman, and now you're here. I'm sorry, we thought you were an assassin, but we didn't expect you to be here for Kong Rong. The middle-aged man said with a wretched smile. Lin Shuer's face darkened. Did all these people from the Kong family think with their lower bodies? Men, go get the eldest young master. The middle-aged man waved his hand, and a guard from the Kong family immediately left. Both parties were in a deadlock, while Yi Xian was carefully observing the situation from the rooftop. That middle-aged man should be a late Earth Core warrior. There are 3 initial Earth Core warriors around him, and the rest are either early Earth Core warriors or late Mortal Core warriors. This Kong family is pretty strong. Yi Xian immediately saw through these men's cultivation. He estimated that if he went down there, he would be able to kill all of them within 10 seconds, including that late Earth Core warrior. But he didn't want to go down there right now because he knew that if he suddenly attacked, he would definitely make Lin Shuer angry. He decided to take a look first. Soon, the wretched young man from before appeared. Kong Rong quickly walked over and said, "It really is you, you bastard. You killed a few of my friends and you still dare to come to my Kong family? You really don't know what's good for you." "Oh, Kong Rong, this girl, is she one of your friends?" The middle-aged man's eyes lit up. "Second uncle, I haven't enjoyed her yet. We can capture her then." Kong Rong suddenly revealed a wretched smile. Previously, when he returned to Thorn City, he had already sent people to watch the city gates. When Yixian and Yixian entered the city, he already knew. Originally, he had wanted to lead a group of experts to launch a sneak attack on Yixian and Yixian, but he hadn't expected the other party to take the initiative to attack him. Alright, Earth Core stage. Alright, I haven't tried it yet. Before the middle-aged man could finish his words, a sharp sword beam swept over. Frightened, the middle-aged man hastily raised his hand to block it. However, in the next instant he was sent flying. Kong Rong was shocked. His second uncle was a profound Earth Core warrior, and Lin Shuer was only slightly stronger than him. It was impossible for her to hurt his second uncle with a sneak attack. What? That weapon? Could it be a high-grade Earth-tier artifact? Kong Rong's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. A high-grade Earth tool. This was extremely rare in the Central State. Go kill this woman together. Kong Rong immediately shouted. When the surrounding guards heard him, they immediately launched an attack. On the roof. I never thought that the Soaring Heaven sword that the Grand Elder gave to Clan Master Mo would be in her hands. No wonder she had the guts to charge in. I really don't understand. If she had directly used the Soaring Heaven sword that day, Kong Rong would have been dead by now. Why bother? Yixian was slightly helpless. However, Lin Shuer's method was the same as his. Kill. Revenge must be exacted. The Kong family was able to stand tall in such a big city in the Central State. They must have a very strong foundation. Thinking of this, Yixian quietly moved closer. If he found that Lin Shuer couldn't handle it, he would make a move. In the courtyard, after Lin Shuer took out the high-grade Earth-tier Soaring Heaven sword, her strength increased greatly. She was invincible, and no one could block her sword. Soon those guards were either dead or crippled. In less than half a minute, all of them fell to the ground. Tisk tsk tisk. At this time the Kong family's second master, Kong Quan, who was sent flying by Lin Shuer's sword, walked out with a lewd smile. On his shoulder, there was a long bloodstain that was caused by Lin Shuer. He greedily looked at the Soaring Heaven sword in Lin Shuer's hand and said, I never thought that a little girl would actually have a high-grade Earth-tier weapon. It seems like your identity is not ordinary. However, since you have intruded into my Kong family, even if you are the city lord of Thorn City, you will not be able to walk out of my Kong family today. Humph. Lin Shuer coldly snorted and did not speak. At this time, other than her, only Kong Rong and Kong Quan were left standing here. 2. Uncle, cripple him. The sword is yours, give me the person. Kong Rong also wished for the world to be in chaos. He did not think that Lin Shuer could win against Kong Quan. Alright, wait until I cripple her and play with her again. I will give her to you. Kong Quan walked towards Lin Shuer as Ling Yi sneered. Lin Shuer was at the small success Earth Core realm, holding a high-grade Earth-tier weapon. Kong Quan had reached the Earth Core realm and was holding a mid-grade Earth-tier weapon. Both of them were not ordinary people. No one knew who was stronger. Yixian was also curious. Boom! After a muffled sound, the two people in the courtyard started to fight. Lin Shuer was dressed in white. Her body was strong and healthy as she continuously attacked Kong Quan. However, she could not even catch Kong Rong, let alone Kong Quan, who was stronger. In less than 3 seconds, Lin Shuer's shoulder was hit by a palm. The Soaring Heaven sword in her hand was uncontrollably snatched away by Kong Quan. Not good. Lin Shuer's face darkened. The high-grade Earth-tier weapon, Soaring Heaven sword, was her trump card. Now that it was snatched away by her opponent, she was in trouble. At this time, she was already regretting her actions. Why did she have to show off? Ha ha ha, little girl, now that your trump card is gone, you should obediently surrender. As long as you cripple your own cultivation, you will not suffer any physical pain. Then, obediently serve my uncle and niece. Maybe we will let you live. Kong Quan laughed. Lin Shuer's face darkened. As soon as Kong Quan finished speaking, she turned around and left. You still want to run in front of me? Kong Quan's eyes widened. He quickly rushed in front of Lin Shuer and struck out with his palm. This palm was aimed 3 inches below Lin Shuer's navel. That was her dantian. Lin Shuer's face was ashen. At this time, the first thing she thought of was Yixian. However, she knew that she was done for. In another second, her dantian would be shattered and she would become a cripple. Then, she would be captured by the Kong family and suffer a fate worse than death. However, at this critical moment, a voice suddenly rang out. Whoosh! A cold light flashed in the night sky. It was like a bolt of lightning. In an instant, it pierced through Kong Quan's wrist and destroyed his Dantian energy. Kong Quan felt the pain. He reflexively retracted his arm and shouted, "Who is it?" His reaction was very fast. He turned his head and saw a figure walking out from the dark corner of the courtyard. End of chapter. Chapter 285. What? There's someone in the corner? Kong Quan was shocked. With his profound Earth Core realm cultivation, he didn't notice anyone. How was that possible? Lin Shuer was also stunned. She immediately rushed towards the intruder. At this moment, her eyes were shining with hope. The person who attacked just now was Yi Xian. He slowly walked out from the corner. The moonlight shone on his face, allowing Lin Shuer to recognize him. You're amazing. You infiltrated a family without wearing night clothes. Yi Xian looked at Lin Shuer helplessly. The latter subconsciously glanced at Yi Xian and saw that he was also wearing white clothes. She immediately rolled her eyes. Kid, where did you come from? Kong Quan looked at Yi Xian with fear. It's you. Kong Rong, who was standing at the side, recognized him. However, Yi Xian didn't want to waste time. He quickly drew his mid-grade earth tool bow and shot an arrow. Swoosh! The arrow was as fast as lightning and entered between Kong Rong's eyebrows. What? Kong Quan was shocked. He quickly ran towards Yi Xian and stabbed with the sword in his left hand. 8 Barren Wind Formation Skybreak. Bang! Lin Shuer only saw a flash in front of her. Kong Quan's body slowed down and then fell in front of Yi Xian. There was a big bloody hole in Kong Quan's back. Yi Xian quickly cleaned up the mess and put everything away. He then pulled Lin Shuer and left. Didn't I tell you not to follow me? After leaving the Kong family, Lin Shuer couldn't help but ask. Yi Xian said helplessly, if I didn't follow you, you should be able to imagine what would happen to you. Do you want to end up like that? Lin Shuer didn't say anything. After a while she said, thank you. We can't stay in Thorn City any longer. Let's go. Yi Xian said directly. But the city gate is closed. Lin Shuer frowned. How can a city wall that's only a few dozen meters be a problem for me? Furthermore, with your current cultivation level, you can even tear down the entire city wall. Your thinking is too limited. Yi Xian had a lecturing look on his face. Lin Shuer didn't. She retorted. Her time in the world was still too short, and she needed more experience. The two of them quickly arrived at the foot of the city wall. They had already killed the higher-ups of the Kong family. At this time the Kong family would definitely be furious, so they could not act rashly and alert the enemy. Yi Xian did not even greet Lin Shuer. He directly grabbed her by the waist and leaped. The 60-meter-high city wall was a piece of cake for him. He easily jumped onto the city wall and ran a few steps forward before jumping off. Suddenly, a pair of wings appeared on Yi Xian's back. He held Shuer in his arms and glided through the air. Lin Shuer felt the night wind caressing her face. Her feelings were very complicated. Firstly, she had already broken off her engagement with Yi Xian. Secondly, Yi Xian already had a fiancé. Thirdly, she had been saved by Yi Xian several times. The two of them flew in the air for a while before landing in a forest. You should treat it first. Don't leave any scars. Yi Xian put Lin Shuer down and said, okay. Lin Shuer nodded. She then walked behind a tree and undid her clothes to treat her injuries. Yi Xian also felt that the 2 sword wounds on Lin Shuer were small wounds that did not affect her movement. Therefore, they had to continue their journey tonight. They had to leave Thorn City first to avoid being wanted. Lin Shuer treated her wounds and then left with Yi Xian. With their speed, they would reach Guangjin City in 1 or 2 days. 2 days later, outside Guangjin City. We're finally here. Yi Xian let out a sigh of relief. He had been rushing for 2 days, but it felt like he had been rushing for half a month. He had to admit that a warrior without a body refiner was very weak. He would need to rest after a few hours of rushing. With his own speed, he would be able to reach Guangjin City in half a day. It was already late at night, and the city gates were about to close. They had just caught the last bus. All right, where is your senior disciple? After entering the city, Yixian couldn't help but ask. As long as he sent Lin Shuer to his senior disciple, he would be able to find the alliance chief of the Divine Prefecture Alliance, Zhang Miao. He has a house in the west of the city, Lin Shuer said. After that, she left with Yixian. Guangjin City was the main city in this area. The city lord was equivalent to the emperor of an empire. It was said that he was a super strong warrior at the initial heavenly core realm. Guangjin City was huge. It had already surpassed the size of the heavenly Yuan sect, and there were millions of people living there. It took them some time to find the residence of the heavenly Yuan sect's senior disciple. Lin Shuer knocked on the door, but there was no response. Are you sure it's here? Yixian asked. It's here. Lin Shuer pointed at the plaque on top of the door. Peng Mansion. It's the right place, but it's empty. There's not a single servant here. Yixian said in an indifferent tone. Lin Shuer was shocked. She immediately jumped over the wall and walked around. Just like what Yixian said, there was no one here. How did you know? After coming out, Lin Shuer couldn't help but ask. How can I tell you a secret? Yixian rolled his eyes and said, Let's go, I think he moved somewhere else. Let's go look for him. Wanshe was a special force in the central state. You could find people, buy things, and even kill people there as long as you had the money they could do it. Yixian and Lin Shuer went to Wanshe again. Then Lin Shuer filled in a form. But this time, Yixian noticed that the attendant's face twitched. We have this person's information in Wanshe right now. It only costs 100 high-grade crystal stones. The attendant said. Lin Shuer paid the money directly. Then, the waiter went out for a while and came back in less than a minute with a parchment scroll in his hand. Peng Xing, adopted by the mayor of Guangjin City a month ago. He is now the young mayor of Guangjin City. His strength has reached the profound earth core realm. When Yixian and Lin Shuer finished reading, their bodies couldn't help but tremble. The senior disciple of the heavenly Yuan sect was adopted by the mayor of Guangjin City, and his strength had even reached the profound earth core realm. This was something that they never expected. Young mayor, that means he's living in the mayor's mansion in Guangjin City. Yixian said slowly. The mayor of Guangjin City was a super warrior at the early heavenly core realm. Peng Xing had reached the heavens in a single bound. If that was the case, as long as Peng Xing recommended them, they would be able to join forces with the other forces. They should be able to return to the heavenly Yuan sect and kill that peak heavenly core green source giant. Without hesitation, Yixian and Lin Shuer started walking towards the mayor's mansion. End of chapter. Chapter 286. Stop right there, who are you? When the captain of the guard saw someone walking towards them, he immediately shouted out. This is the junior apprentice sister of your young mayor. Please inform him. Yixian directly replied. At the same time, he was very surprised in his heart. There were a total of 10 guards in this group, and the captain had just broken through to the earth core realm. The rest of them were all at the late mortal core realm. The central province was indeed the central province. Junior apprentice sister? The captain furrowed his brows and said, Are you kidding me? Our mayor doesn't belong to any sect. How could he have a junior apprentice sister? How dare you impersonate her? Capture them. Don't belong to any sect? Could it be that you're mistaken? Yixian was slightly startled, but he still believed in the ability to do anything. If this was the case, then Peng Xing must have lied about not belonging to any sect. Right at this moment, all the guards were on the move, preparing to capture Yixian and Shuai. Let me do it. Just as Yixian was about to teach these snobbish guards a lesson, Lin Shuer whispered and dashed forward. In less than half a minute, all the guards were lying on the ground, unable to get up after being beaten by Lin Shuer. How dare you resist? Do you know where you are? The captain of the guard said fiercely. You can choose not to believe us, but if we are really your young mayor's friends, then you'll have offended him. Are you sure you don't want to inform him? Yixian kindly reminded. This. The captain of the guard stayed silent for a while, then he said, What are your names? Lin Shuer, you just need to tell the young mayor our names, then he'll know. Yixian replied. All right, then you just wait here. If you aren't, then you'll be wanted. The captain of the guards believed them this time. Then he turned around and entered the mayor's mansion. Just now he didn't pay much attention to Yixian and Shuer because they were so young. But after being defeated by Lin Shuer, he realized that Yixian and Shuer were not ordinary people. Soon, the captain of the guards came back. How was it? Yixian asked with a smile. Excuse me, this way please. When the guard captain appeared again, he endured the pain in his body and smiled. This chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Welcome. It seemed that Pang Xing was the first senior brother of the Heavenly Yuan sect. Then Yixian and Lin Shuer entered the city lord's mansion under the lead of this guard. The two of you, the young city lord is currently busy, so he asked me to arrange a place for you to stay. The young city lord will be here shortly. After the captain finished speaking, he arranged a courtyard for Yixian and Lin Shuer respectively and left. After traveling for 2 days, Lin Shuer was also tired, so Yixian returned to the courtyard next door to rest first. Now, his mission was almost complete, which was to escort Lin Shuer to Guangjin City. Next, he was going to the Divine Prefecture main city to look for Zhang Miao, the leader of the Divine Prefecture Alliance, who was ranked first on the heaven roll. He had decided to rest for the night and set off the next day. Guangjin City's mayor is at the initial heavenly core realm, so he must have a high-grade earth tool with him. He should be able to deal with the green source giant. But, if the Soaring Heaven Mansion and Heavenly Yuan sect want to take advantage of the situation, they can't be monopolized by one faction. I need to get more people. Yixian was planning something in his own room. Currently, he liked to plan for the future. But right at this moment he suddenly heard a series of footsteps. Light footsteps, it's an expert. I think it's the first senior brother of the Heavenly Yuan sect, Pang Xing. Yixian only sensed the footsteps for a moment, but he didn't pay much attention to it. However, a few minutes later, he could not help but frown again. He actually heard the sound of an argument. His courtyard was right next to Lin Shuer's, so no sound could escape his ears. Shuer, don't you know my heart? I love you from the bottom of my heart. Now, I've been adopted by the city lord as his foster son. Follow me, and when I become the city lord, you'll be the city lord's wife. It was an unfamiliar man's voice, and without a doubt it was Pang Xing's senior brother. How can you do this? Now that the Heavenly Yuan sect has been destroyed, everyone is temporarily staying in the Soaring Heaven Mansion. Do you want us to stay like this for the rest of our lives? Lin Shuer's voice rang out. The Heavenly Yuan sect, it's just a small sect. My foster father can destroy it with a single order. Now that I'm the young city lord of Guangjin City, why should I return to the Heavenly Yuan sect? Shuer, don't go back either, just stay here with me from now on. This chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Pang Xing continued. Hearing this, Yixian's brows furrowed tightly. He felt that something was amiss. The Heavenly Yuan sect had nurtured Pang Xing, but Pang Xing was ungrateful and did not respect the Heavenly Yuan sect at all. What an ingrate! No, I'm indebted to Master, so how can I abandon the Heavenly Yuan sect? Senior brother, just tell me if you'll help me or not. I can help, but you have to agree to marry me first. Otherwise, why should I help? Senior brother, you? My foster father's son was killed by a disciple from a sect. That's why he hates sects the most. Also, because of this, there isn't a single sect in the Guangjin city. If I want him to send a powerful warrior to help, it won't be easy. Of course, as long as you agree, I'll help you convince my foster father. I can't promise you. Lin Shuer answered without thinking. This was her personality. She hated being forced or threatened by others. Junior sister, the moment you arrived at the Heavenly Yuan sect, I've fallen in love with you. For the past 2 years I've been paying attention to you all the time. You have great talent, and I'm sure you'll surpass me in the future. That's why I took the risk to leave the Heavenly Yuan sect and come to the Central Province to train. I wanted to become stronger, so that I can be a good match for you. Now I've done it. My foster father is a mid-heavenly core warrior, and he stands at the pinnacle of the heavenly water continent. As long as you follow me, I'm sure you'll become a heavenly core warrior in the future, and you might even surpass my foster father. You might even reach the 4th realm of the spirit realm. Pang Xing started talking at length, trying to convince Lin Shuer. Stop talking, I won't agree to it. Senior brother, since you're not going to help me, then I'll take my leave. After saying that, Lin Shuer turned around and left. Right at this moment, Pang Xing suddenly grabbed onto her wrist and said, Shuer, if you don't agree to it, I won't let you go. Senior brother, don't force me to do it. Lin Shuer suddenly took out the soaring heavens sword. Pang Xing's eyes became serious, and a greedy look appeared in his eyes. Shuer, even if you have a high-ranked earth weapon, I don't think you're my match. Just follow my orders. Swoosh. Before he could finish his words, a piercing sound could be heard. Lin Shuer couldn't take it anymore and she took action. End of chapter. Chapter 287. Kill. Pang Xing dodged the sword and retreated. Even though he reacted quickly, his shoulder was grazed by the sword. However, he ignored it and said, Shuai, you actually attacked me. I know you must have fallen in love with someone else. I heard from the guards that a pretty boy came with you. Who is he? Senior brother, don't talk nonsense. Lin Shuer's face darkened. I see you two are already together. You bitch, I wanted to find time to return to the Sky Yuan sect to marry you. How dare you have an affair behind my back? Now, I'll capture you and strip you naked in front of him. I'll let him watch me do. Before Pang Xing could finish, Lin Shuer took a step forward and stabbed him with her sword. She was extremely disappointed. She did not expect her dignified senior brother to be such a beast. However, in the next moment, she saw Pang Xing take out a weapon and block her attack. Clang! Lin Shuer's soaring cloud sword was knocked away. Then Pang Xing slapped her chest, causing her to spit out a mouthful of blood and fly backward. I have a high-grade earthly weapon too. You bitch, how dare you try to kill me? I'll CK you up. Pang Xing said viciously as he walked toward Lin Shuer. However, at this moment, swish! A cold light flashed. Pang Xing was shocked. He quickly waved his right hand and destroyed the cold light. However, he felt a chill in front of his chest. When he looked down, he saw that there was a large hole in his chest. Once he lowered his head, he could no longer raise it. He fell backward, blood spurting out and drenching his clothes. Lin Shuer turned around and saw Yixian flip over the wall and land on the ground. He then put away Pang Xing's universe ring and high-grade earthly weapon. You killed him? Lin Shuer asked in surprise. You silly girl, didn't you hear what he just said? Do you still think he's your senior brother? Yixian helplessly walked over and checked Lin Shuer's injuries. He sighed and said, he really hit you hard. If you had just broken through to the Earth Core realm, you would have been killed by that palm strike. After he finished speaking, he picked Lin Shuer up and jumped out of the courtyard. You? Lin Shuer stared at Yixian with her eyes wide open. What? You? A young mayor of the central province is killed? Guangjin City is going to fall into chaos? Are you going to stay here and wait to be caught? He shook his head, then he quickly. However, not long after he left the courtyard, a figure flashed out and slammed a palm toward him. Bang! Xian Xian's Yixian Shue's god. Damn it, it must be a heavenly core warrior. He Shui Xian 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 Xian, Shui Xian 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 Xian. How dare you assassinate the young mayor? I'll kill you. A deep voice sounded out in Yixian's ears, scaring him so much that he quickly stood up. Bang! A large crater had been blasted out of the place where he had been lying just now, and thick smoke was still rising from it. Yixian couldn't help but shiver. If he had been a little slower, he would have been seriously injured. Who are you? Yixian stood up and asked in fear. A dead man doesn't need to know my name. A middle-aged man slowly walked out. He was the one who sneak attacked Yixian just now, causing Yixian to throw away the beauty in his arms. Heavenly Core Realm, he really is a Heavenly Core warrior. Luckily he's just a young Heavenly Core warrior, or else I would have been dead by now. Yixian thought to himself. Although he was just a young Heavenly Core warrior, this time he would need to exchange for a high-ranked Earth-rank martial skill in order to fight against this man. Lin Shuer also stood up from the ground. She knew the cultivation level of this middle-aged man in front of her. With a pale face she said, I'm the one who killed Pang Xing, not him. Shut up, you little bitch. You're going to die soon. The middle-aged man didn't want to waste any more time. He took a big step forward and threw out a punch. He wanted to take Yixian's life. His speed was so fast that it was beyond Lin Shuer's reaction. But before this, Yixian had already swallowed a pill. Great strength pill. At the same time, he spent 50 Devour crystals to exchange for a high-ranked Earth-rank martial skill. Poof! 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 Explode technique. Explode all 3 orifices. Heavenly Tyrant Fist. A thick Dan energy gushed out from his body. As Yixian threw out a punch, the Dan energy poured into his other fist. Bang! A loud explosion sounded out. It was as if a bomb had just exploded. The shockwave sent Lin Shuer, who was a small heavenly core warrior, flying backwards. At the same time, another figure was sent flying in the opposite direction. It wasn't Yixian, it was the middle-aged heavenly core warrior. What? The middle-aged man was shocked. His eyes were wide open, and he couldn't believe what just happened. His punch just now was powerful enough to kill a late earthly core warrior, but he was still sent flying by Yixian. How was this possible? High-ranked earth-rank gloves, high-ranked earth-rank martial skill? In an instant, the middle-aged man realized what was going on. Not only did he have a high-ranked earth-rank weapon, but Yixian also had a high-ranked earth-rank martial skill. This was out of his expectations. But before he could land on the ground, he saw Yixian suddenly appear in front of Lin Shuer. He carried her in his arms and left the place in an instant. Plop! The moment the middle-aged man landed on the ground, he quickly jumped up and chased after Yixian. But in the next second, he was shocked to find out that Yixian was gone. So fast, who is this guy? The middle-aged man was shocked. He looked around again but didn't find anything strange. It looked like Yixian had left. I need to report this to the mayor as soon as possible. The middle-aged man turned around and left. In his mind, he was imagining how the mayor of Guangjin would be enraged. The mayor of Guangjin was old. His only son was killed by a disciple from a sect. He had been listening to the news all these years, and when he finally found a suitable adopted son, he was killed by someone else. Perhaps the entire Zhong province would be shaken. But what the middle-aged man didn't know was that after he left, two figures walked out from a corner of the courtyard. Luckily my dark shadow leopard bloodline has been upgraded to a high rank, and I can move things I touch. If not, I would have been discovered. Yixian let out a sigh of relief, then he said, "We can't stay here any longer. Let's leave the city now." Last time he killed Kong Rong and Kong Quan, and was forced to leave Thorn City. This time he killed the young mayor of Thorn City, Pang Xing, and was forced to leave again. It was really bitter. Chapter 288. The hunt. Both of them quickly left the mayor's mansion. Then they chose the nearest city gate and left. The attack just now had depleted all of Yixian's core energy, and he couldn't even unleash the 8 desolate wind formation, so he had no choice but to run. If he didn't, he could have used the heavenly break formation again, and perhaps he could have killed that middle-aged man. A heavenly core warrior definitely had a lot of wealth. But too bad he had missed the opportunity. If there was a next time, the middle-aged man would definitely use all of his strength and wouldn't underestimate Yixian anymore. At that time, Yixian's chances of survival would be less than 20%. After leaving the city, Yixian quickly healed Lin Shuer as well as himself. After that, they started heading in the same direction. Originally, they thought this would be a simple task, they just needed to spread the news about the green source giant. But now it looked like they couldn't let the mayor know about this. If they did, the Sky Yuan sect and Soaring Heaven Mansion wouldn't have anything to do with the green source giant. After killing Pang Xing, Yixian brought Lin Shuer and ran for the entire night before they finally stopped. Lin Shuer spent the entire night in Yixian's arms. When Yixian put her down, she still had the same shocked expression on her face. "You ran for the entire night, aren't you tired?" Lin Shuer asked in shock. "I'm fine. I'm a body refining cultivator. My recovery speed is very fast," Yixian slowly explained. This was all thanks to the myriad flower bloodline. Otherwise he wouldn't have been able to run for the entire night. Lin Shuer stared at him in shock. Yixian's speed last night was incredibly fast, and she reckoned he had already surpassed Mo Ziyun. But in the next second, her expression turned gloomy, because the gap between her and Yixian had widened once again. "What's wrong?" Yixian looked at Lin Shuer and asked curiously. Lin Shuer shook her head. She hesitated for a moment then said, "I just have a question for you." "What is it?" Yixian furrowed his brows and asked. This time Lin Shuer hesitated again, then she asked, "Do you hate me?" Hearing this question, Yixian was stunned for a moment, then he asked in shock, "Why would I hate you? You don't hate me?" Lin Shuer blinked her eyes. "Are you talking about the engagement? Why would I hate you?" Moreover, it's all thanks to Elder Eugen's 2 spirit-gathering pills. Otherwise, I would still be a piece of trash. Yixian smiled. Indeed, it was the soul-gathering pill that allowed him to activate the devouring system. Otherwise, he might still be in Lianyun City. No, he might be living a peaceful life in some town. Really? Schwetter couldn't believe it. Nonsense, if I hated you, I would have slapped you the first time I saw you. Yixian nodded seriously. Lin. Schwer was choked by this sentence. Although it was a bit harsh, it also untied a knot in her heart. She originally wanted to return to Lianyun City and put on a high and mighty attitude. She wanted Yixian to hate her. That way Yixian would feel better. However, she didn't expect that Yixian would actually come to the Heavenly Yuan sect. Even she was shocked by his methods. After that, Yixian grew little by little. Now Yixian had left her in the dust. She thought Yixian would mock her, but Yixian never mentioned the engagement. Now this knot was finally untied. I'll rest for a while. We'll continue on our way to Divine Land City, Yixian said. He sat down and closed his eyes to rest. Although they were far away from Thorn City, he still felt a little uneasy. Just in case, he decided to rush to Divine Land City. Okay. Lin. Schwer nodded. Yixian slept for about 15 minutes. When he woke up, it was about time to start on the road. Aren't you going to sleep more? Lin. Schwer saw this and asked. No, I feel like something is going to happen. Let's talk about it when we reach Divine Land City. Yixian shook his head and walked over. Lin. Schwer didn't refuse. She let Yixian carry her. However, at this moment, beep! A shrill cry suddenly rang out in the dark night. When Yixian and Lin Schwer heard it, they couldn't help but pause. Yixian sensed a bird entering his range. This wasn't important. What was important was that there were 2 figures on the bird's back. One was a human while the other looked like a dog. Lin Schwer and the guy who killed the young city lord, I know you're here. Come out. A loud roar entered Yixian's ears. He was startled for a moment, but he immediately reacted. Wasn't this the voice of the middle-aged man he met at the mayor's mansion in Guangjin City? Impossible, how did he catch up with us? Yixian cried out in shock. He carefully checked his clothes, and he found out that there was a trace of his opponent's Dan energy left on his clothes. Damn it, why didn't I notice it? I'm such a pig. He scolded himself in his mind, then he said to Lin Schwer, You hide here, I'll lure him away and see if I can kill his mount. I'll meet up with you later. He had checked Lin Schwer's clothes. There was no trace of a heavenly core Dan energy, so he didn't have to worry. If he wanted to avoid this, he would have to erase his opponent's Dan energy and kill his mount. However, Yixian was thinking of the third option, kill his opponent. Be careful, Lin Schwer said with a worried expression. She knew there was nothing she could do to help right now. You stay here and watch. If anyone else comes, go to the Divine Land City yourself and post a notice on the entrance. As for me, I have many ways to escape, remember that. After saying that, Yixian disappeared into the darkness. The forest wasn't big. Yixian could cross it in 10 seconds. If he wanted to kill this heavenly core warrior here, he couldn't fight him head-on, he had to outsmart him. If we fight head-on, I won't be able to defeat you, but my methods are definitely beyond your imagination. Fog formation activate. Yixian quickly formed hand seals. In the blink of an eye, a thick fog covered the entire forest. Fog. The middle-aged man in the sky frowned. Then he shouted out loudly, Young man, surrender now or else, I'll burn this entire forest down. But before he could finish his words, a cold beam shot up into the sky. Bam! The middle-aged man threw out a punch and shattered the arrow beam. At the same time, he found Yixian's approximate location. So you're here, die now. Chapter 289. Killing a Heavenly Core Warrior. Bang! An area that was about 10 meters wide was cleared out, and all the trees in the area were shattered into pieces. You're not here? Again. The middle-aged man's eyes lit up as he continuously struck out with both hands, attacking crazily. The trees in the forest were destroyed one by one, and after more than 10 palm strikes, he still couldn't find Yixian. Right at this moment, the middle-aged man was about to land on the ground. But right at this moment, Two cold beams suddenly shot up into the sky about 100 meters away from the middle-aged man. Swoosh! The arrows flew through the air and hit the head of the other Xian beast, instantly killing them. Right now, Yi Xian could have run away, but he didn't because he had his eyes on the middle-aged man's storage ring. The central province is rich, they don't care about the 4 big cities at all. Let me see how much wealth a heavenly core warrior has. Yi Xian thought to himself. At the same time, the middle-aged man had also found out Yi Xian's approximate location based on the cold beam he saw just now. Without hesitation, he used his palm strike to open up a path, knocking away all the trees in front of him. You little brat, you have the potential to be an assassin. You've just broken through to the Earth Core realm, but you're already strong enough to fight me. Yesterday, you escaped and caused me to be scolded by the city lord. Today, I must kill you and atone for my crime. After the middle-aged man finished talking to himself, he started attacking crazily again. There were trees and fog in the forest, so he had to clear all the obstacles around him. But right at this moment, Yi Xian, who was hiding in the dark, had a confident smile on his face. Tap tap. Suddenly, the sound of grass rustling in the wind entered the middle-aged man's ears. He immediately turned around and threw out a punch. Now! Right at the moment when the middle-aged man attacked, Yi Xian, who was hiding 10 meters away from him, suddenly poured out a huge amount of core energy and gathered it on the Bahuang sword. In an instant, a huge sword was formed, and Yi Xian swung it towards the middle-aged man. What? The middle-aged man was shocked. He suddenly remembered that there were 2 people, and immediately turned around. At this time, the 8 Desolation greatsword had already slashed over. Fortunately, the middle-aged man had also refined his body, and his speed was extremely fast. He actually used both hands to slap the 8 Desolation greatsword in the center of his palm. You do have some ability, but can you take this move? Yi Xian snorted coldly in his heart. In the next moment, the 8 Desolation greatsword suddenly shattered. Following that, the middle-aged man felt a sharp pain in his eardrums. He was completely stunned. Not only that, but the loud noise was still reverberating in his ears, constantly stimulating his brain. 2 seconds later, he fell limply to the ground, his eyes turning white. Seeing this, Yi Xian directly threw out the Bahuang sword in his hand. With a kacha sound, the Bahuang sword split into 8 pieces, then formed a sharp awl that suddenly pierced down. 8 desolate wind killing array Tianchong broke through. Hiss! The middle-aged man's chest was pierced through, and he died in an instant. He never thought that he would die in the hands of a brat who had just entered the Earth Core realm. There was a difference of 3 whole realms between them. After he died, Yi Xian walked out from the darkness and sneered. What a pity! You died because of your carelessness. Don't think that I am 3 realms lower than you. If I had the chance, I would have killed you without leaving a single piece of armor behind. However, the combination of the Echo Formation and the 8 Desolation Heaven-shaking sword almost made me deaf. Fortunately, there was the Echo Formation, or else it would have been difficult for me to kill you. After muttering to himself, Yi Xian kept the middle-aged man's remains and corpse. Back in the Lingxiao Peak's bamboo forest, Great Elder Lin Wenyue had set up a sound isolation formation. However, this time Yi Xian had set up an echo formation. If someone spoke inside, it would be like shouting in the valley, creating a continuous echo. This formation was extremely complicated. Fortunately, Yi Xian had set it up in advance. If it was during a battle, he definitely wouldn't have been able to set it up. Moreover, this middle-aged man seemed to have refined his body, and his physique was much stronger than ordinary people. Moreover, this man was very experienced in battle. He would always use some of his Dan essence to protect his ears. If it wasn't for the echo formation, Yi Xian definitely wouldn't have been able to kill him with just the 8 Desolation Heaven-shaking sword. As for what attracted the middle-aged man's attention, it wasn't Lin Shuer, but some of the puppets that Yi Xian had hidden in the surroundings. The central province might have some sound techniques, so he was used to protecting his ears. Yi Xian thought for a while, and then checked the contents of the ring. A high-grade earth tool and a bunch of miscellaneous items. He had devoured everything and obtained 50 devouring crystals. The central province was indeed rich. The items in this Qian Kuan ring had probably surpassed the entire Soaring Heaven mansion. Of course, that was the former Soaring Heaven mansion. Previously, he had used 50 Devour crystals to exchange for a high-grade Earth-level martial art. Now that he had obtained another 50 Devour crystals, it was a good return. Then he left immediately. Lin Shuer was very anxious when she saw the middle-aged man jump into the forest. After the middle-aged man landed, she didn't hear a single sound, which made her even more anxious. However, at this moment a figure suddenly appeared. She was so frightened that she hurriedly drew her sword. However, when she saw who it was, her tense nerves suddenly relaxed. "That's great, you're fine," Lin Shuer exclaimed. Then she quickly covered her mouth. After all, there were other people in the forest. "It's fine. That person is already dead," Yi Xian said with a relaxed expression. "What? Dead? You killed him?" Lin Shuer exclaimed again when she heard this. Yi Xian nodded. "He's dead. However, we can't stay here for long. We have to leave quickly." If the middle-aged man could chase after them, there might be other people chasing after them. Although the middle-aged man said that he wanted to redeem himself, it was better to be careful. If the city lord of Guangjin City were to chase after them, they would be dead meat. After he finished speaking, he directly carried Lin Shuer and rushed towards the Divine Land City. Yi Xian's worries were unnecessary. When dawn arrived, they finally arrived at the Divine Land City. At this moment, the city gates were just opened. The two of them immediately walked in. Previously, when they went to Guangjin City, they were looking for the eldest senior brother of the Heavenly Yuan sect, Pang Xing. This time they were looking for the eldest senior brother of the Soaring Heaven Mansion, Zhang Miao. Yi Xian had a copy of Zhang Miao's address, so they immediately went to look for him. In front of a residence in the southern part of the Divine Land City, a servant was cleaning outside the Zhang residence. When he saw Yi Xian and Zhang Miao, he asked curiously, "Who are you looking for?" This location was relatively remote, and there was only one courtyard nearby that had people living there. That was why he asked this question. "Excuse me, does Zhang Miao live here? You're looking for the young master?" "The young master went out a few days ago and hasn't returned yet," the servant replied. Chapter 290. Alliance Chief of Divine Land Alliance not here? Yi Xian continued asking. "Do you know where he went? When will he be back?" "I don't know." The servant shook his head. Yi Xian was puzzled. He had found the place, but he couldn't find the person. Could it be that he had to look for the Myriad Pavilion again? "Thank you." He nodded his head and left. He wondered if the Myriad Pavilion could find Zhang Miao's exact location. After a while, Yi Xian and Lin Shuer once again arrived at the Myriad Pavilion. Yi Xian didn't know much about Zhang Miao, but the Myriad Pavilion was still able to find out Zhang Miao's location. Zhang Miao is currently in the Heavenly Shaking Mountain? Yi Xian looked at the parchment and was startled. The Heavenly Shaking Mountain was a dangerous place in the Divine Land. It was said that there were heavenly Korxian beasts there. It looked like Zhang Miao was training there. After leaving the Myriad Pavilion, Yi Xian said to Lin Shuer, "Let's find a place to stay first. Then I'll go look for him. You wait for him in the Divine Land City, be careful." Lin Shuer nodded her head. She knew that if she followed him, it would be very inconvenient for Yi Xian, and she would only be a burden to Yi Xian. Without further ado, both of them found a place to stay. Then Yi Xian left the Divine Land City. The Heavenly Shaking Mountain was located at the north of the Divine Land City. Yi Xian estimated that with his speed, it would take him about 1 day to reach there. Zhang Miao is currently in a cave in the Heavenly Shaking Mountain. He should be cultivating. This Myriad Pavilion is really resourceful, isn't it? Yi Xian was very surprised. This Myriad Pavilion could really do anything. They even knew the exact location of a person who was training outside. He had no idea how they did it. 1 day later, Yi Xian entered the Heavenly Shaking Mountain. The Heavenly Shaking Mountain was huge. It seemed to be even bigger than the entire Soaring Heaven Mansion. It was impossible to find a person here. However, the location given by the All Affairs Pavilion was very precise. It was in a cave in the western part of the Heavenly Shaking Mountain. After entering the Heaven Shaking Mountain, Yi Xian immediately rushed out. This was a very suitable place for leveling up. There were many birds and beasts, and all of them were at least at the Earth Core realm. Therefore, Yi Xian was in a very good mood. He had the urge to level this Heaven Shaking Mountain. But at the moment it was better to find Zheng Miao first. After all, the exact location given by the All Affairs Pavilion was a day ago. Very soon, Yixian found the cave according to the location given by the All Affairs Pavilion. However, there was no one in the cave. Bonfire still warm and leftover meat. Looks like they just left. Yixian frowned and looked around. Sure enough, he found a small footprint. He followed the footprints and began to sense his surroundings to see if he could find someone. However, at this moment, a huge roar suddenly rang out from the mountain, as well as all sorts of rumbling sounds. Someone is fighting with those Xian beasts. It should be Zheng Miao. Yixian immediately reacted. Those who were able to train in the heavenly shaking mountain were definitely not ordinary people. Previously, he only asked the All Affairs Pavilion to find Zheng Miao's location. They didn't look for any other information. Therefore, he estimated that Zheng Miao might be a mid-Earth Core warrior, or even a late Earth Core warrior. Without hesitation, he rushed towards the source of the sound. When he walked out of the forest, he saw 4 figures moving around in an open space in front of him. 3 heavenly core golden heavy apes? When Yixian saw the figures of the 3 figures, he was startled. Right now, the 3 golden heavy apes were attacking a young man who was holding a long sword. The battle was very intense. Zheng Miao? No way. A single man fighting 3 heavenly core Xian beasts? Is he really from the Soaring Heaven Mansion? Yixian couldn't believe it. The reward for being ranked second on the heavenly ranking was only a late mortal core warrior, and he had just broken through to the Earth Core realm after absorbing a Xian beast's inner core. Therefore, Yixian couldn't believe that the young man in front of him was the Alliance Chief of the Divine Prefecture Alliance, Zheng Miao. However, when he saw that the young man seemed to be struggling, he immediately shouted, "Mister, do you need help?" Hearing this, the young man replied, "These 3 are heavenly core Xian beasts. They are extremely strong, and their defense is amazing. Please be careful." It looked like he needed help. So what if their defense is amazing? Yixian smiled. Then he took out an Earth Tool longbow and released an arrow. Mid-rank Earth rank martial skill soul-breaking arrow. Swoosh! The arrow pierced through the air and hit the back of one of the golden heavy apes. However, this golden heavy ape's defense was amazing, and the arrow only managed to make a small hole on its back. When the golden heavy ape was suddenly injured, it turned around and glared at Yixian. Then it turned around and continued attacking the young man. Its defense is amazing, let's try this bow. Yixian thought for a moment. Then he took out a new bow and arrow. It was a high-rank earth tool. Swoosh! Just now the golden heavy ape didn't take the arrow seriously, so it was shot in the head. This time its head was pierced through, and it died in an instant. A high-rank earth tool, a mid-rank earth martial skill, and the bloodline of the Overlord arrow. Killing you is as easy as pie. Yixian let out a cold snort in his mind. When the golden heavy ape fell to the ground, he shot another arrow. Bam! Soul-breaking arrow. A single arrow could break a soul. The second golden heavy ape didn't even have time to react before its head exploded. When the third golden heavy ape saw that its 2 companions were killed, its eyes immediately lit up, and it prepared to charge towards Yixian. But right at this moment, the young man suddenly leapt into the air and slashed at its head with his sword. A head was sent flying and fell to the ground. Blood splashed everywhere. A high-rank earth tool, a high-rank earth martial skill? Yixian immediately realized what was going on. This young man seemed to have an extraordinary background. A heavenly core warrior is still a heavenly core warrior. He's much easier to deal with than a human. The young man murmured to himself. Then he turned to Yixian and said, "My name is Zheng Miao. Thank you for your help." Yixian had killed 2 heavenly core golden heavy apes with just 3 arrows. This was more than enough to prove his strength. Zheng Miao. When Yixian heard this name, his eyes lit up. He had found the right person. But although his name matched, his strength didn't match. "My name is Yixian." Yixian cupped his fist and said respectfully, "These 2 golden heavy apes were killed by Brother Yi, so their corpses should be yours." Zheng Miao put away the golden heavy ape he killed. Then he said to Yixian. Yixian walked over cautiously. Although this Zheng Miao might be the person he was looking for, there were 3 golden heavy apes' corpses in front of him, and 3 heavenly core cores. Who knew if this guy would suddenly attack him? Although he looked calm on the surface, he was actually very cautious. After that, He put away the two golden heavy apes' corpses. He turned around and saw that Zheng Miao was still standing a few meters away, quietly looking at him.